Hello and welcome to our live coverage of the deciding day of the 2017 Sailing Champions League. We're at one of the world's most famous and exclusive sailing clubs, and their pennant is flying high from that flagpole. The yacht club Costa Smeralda on Sardinia's northwest coast.
Hello fellows, welcome to the Champions League Day 1. Welcome to the beautiful Sardinia, to the Costa Smeralda, and look how nice it is here.
And it is a stunningly beautiful place nestling on the Emerald Coast, the Costa Smeralda on the northwest corner of Sardinia in the heart of the Mediterranean Sea. Now, all weekend it has supplied us with excellent sailing conditions for the climax of the Champions League season. 32 of the best club teams from 14 countries have been battling it out since Friday, and today we will get a winner. And sitting beside me to crunch all the SAP sailing data coming off the water is Corky Rhodes, and we really are all set for an exciting finale.
We are, with the final races coming into play, and it is all to play for, with any of the top teams going to take away this trophy.
Well, let's see who those top teams are. Let's see how things stand going into the final two flights of this season as we look out across the bay, and in the far, just nestling down in the middle of the shot there, the white buildings of Porto Cervo and the port. Let's have a look at the overall leaderboard, see where we stand. And the good news is for the local fans that their local team is top of the pile, 4 points ahead of their nearest challengers, the Société Nautique de Genève. Then come two Russian teams that are battling it out for a podium place, and Lord of the Sail performing very well indeed yesterday. The other Italian team are in 5th place. They'll be looking to improve massively on that. A lot of experience on board the Circolo Canottieri Agnene from Rome. And then come the French from Antibes, from the south of France, the Société de Régate d'Antibes. And then two German teams, including one of the favourites going into the regatta from Wannsee, and the NRV team currently sitting in 8th. So, Corky, how do you think, mathematically, I know they can be caught, but who do you think can actually do it?
Well, that's right. It's with 2 more races still to race, and every single point counts. There's no discards in this series, so with an additional of 16 points at risk, but certainly seeing that hometown favourites, the security they've got, and they've only slipped up in a couple of races to gain that sort of maximum side of points, we could see anyone that take them.
All right, well, glorious conditions again today. An interesting weather forecast, because it's set to be 7 to 11 knots of wind from the northwest, so a very different direction from yesterday. It also means slightly cooler, just 23 degrees. But we're not very confident in this forecast, are we? Because things not panning out like that on the water right now.
No, so we've got a lot lighter breeze out on the water, 4.5 up to 6 knots. But certainly with the conditions, you can see how mountainous it is around the shore side. That's right in front of where the race course is at the moment. And so the breeze coming off that westerly direction, we are hoping to see that wind move a little bit towards the north and start to increase. But very shifty conditions on that race course, which is going to provide fantastic racing and really challenge the sailors out on the water. But it's also proving difficult for the race committee to get these races set.
Because yesterday, very different. It was very much a bit of a drag race out there.
Very much so. The breeze was in a stable position. It built, and it was very much down to speed. Getting off that line, sailing towards that middle to left-hand side of the course, and you were generally fairly secured. If you got up into the top 3 or 4 spots, we generally saw them stay where they were. Today, very different with these shifts and a lot more place changes. Certainly advantageous, but also you could see some big losses as well.
We'll go live out to the race course shortly. They're just finishing off one of the races, and then we'll be joining them for the final race of flight number 10 very shortly indeed. But there you can see the yacht club Costa Smeralda nestling in the bosom of the bay, established in 1967. They're celebrating 50 years. And boy, they know how to celebrate here. We experienced some of those celebrations last night. Food fantastic. The old local Verdicchio wine, even better.
It was
you got a headache?
Superb. No, fresh as a daisy for me, and likewise with many of the sailors. But it was just absolutely spectacular, and something noted by all of the sailors. Very special to come here and race on these waters. But the hosts have certainly pulled everything out of the bag for them.
So, their local team out in front at the moment. So much experience on board that boat. It's going to be difficult for anyone to reel them in.
Well, rightly so. As I say, there's a couple all poised. We've said actually anyone in the top 10 could potentially do it due to the amount of points available. But with how consistent they've sailed throughout all of the races, it's going to be very difficult. There's obviously a couple of Russian teams nipping at their heels, as well as the Swiss team in second. So there's a lot of teams poised, waiting for that slip up. But with the experience on board at the home team, Flavio Favini, a tactician and also a helmsman in 2 of the America's Cups, supported by a team of world and European champions, the knowledge on board and also knowing these waters, training on these waters, spending time in that J70 in these waters is just going to be a formidable force to tackle.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in St. Petersburg, where the currents and the conditions on the river and even all the river traffic have such an effect on the racing, the St. Petersburg Yacht Club, they were a wild card entry as hosts. No one was really expecting them to do great things, but in the end they finished third. And the irony was, they said, well, we can't actually train on this stretch of water on the river because it's so busy normally. So it made their success even more remarkable. And they are, of course, here, having qualified by finishing third. They are here in Porto Cervo and are challenging well. So, Corky, take us through the course and what sort of action can we expect today?
So the course is a windward leeward course, straight up to a selection of windward marks which were made early at the start, down to a gate to split the opportunity for passing, and then a straight run through to the finish. So a simple course, but plenty of technical challenge. Certainly now we look out on that water, how still it is, how flat that conditions are. It is going to be about speed, but there's going to be lots of shifts out there and speed humps to hit on that race course.
So we're a few minutes away from the final race of Flight 10, and then we have the 2 concluding flights of this Champions League final, Flight 11 and 12. So basically, we're going to see, after this next race, we will see all teams compete twice. I'll run through who's on board which boats shortly, but already today we've seen Yacht Club Costa Smeralda get themselves a victory, their 6th of the competition, of the regatta so far, so they're already in fine form. So let's just run through who is in which boat, because if you're tuning in for the first time, I can tell you that each boat has a coloured sail and a coloured bow and a bow and sail number, and the teams swap and change for each race. So in boat number 1 is, and I'm going to do these in order rather than who we can see. Boat number 1 is Akensee from Austria. They're on the blue boat. Boat number 2 with the red sail is Ostlegal Sailing. They're challenging for victory overall, so we'll keep an eye on how they get on. The Dutch from Scheveningen are in boat number 3 with the yellow sail. Boat number 4 are the Poles from Yacht Club Sopot, and boat number 4 is the one with the light green sail that we're just seeing passing the committee boat there in the middle of the picture. Boat number 5, that's also the sail you can see just the other side of the committee boat. boat number 5. It's pink. They are from Finland. They are the Nielenska Yacht Club. Boat number 6 is a sort of lilac colour, Hellerup Sail Club of Denmark. Boat number 7, just going out of shot with the grey sail. They're Société de Régate d'Antibes from the south of France. And then boat number 8 with a light blue sail are the Kulaveks Kanot. Anyway, it's KKKK. It's that lot from Sweden. And we'll see how they all get on as this race unfolds. Talk us through the start line and what we're looking at here, Corky.
So we can see there's a mark just being moved around. So there's clearly this breeze is shuffling around underneath that headland. We looked at that overview shot of how hilly and mountainous it is around near the club. These boats only being about 1 mile, just off 1 kilometre, sorry, off the shoreline. So tucked in very close to that shoreline, but very shifty conditions. And so the race officer just making those amendments to that start line, trying to create as fair a race as possible. But clearly you can see that lightish breeze, but you can see how still the water is. Yesterday we had quite a nice swell and actually a tricky chop for the boats to go over with more of that southerly direction. But here, with this westerly, northwesterly direction, a lot flatter conditions. So yes, it's going to come down to speed, but actually the key focus for many of these sailors is going to be trying to get into this shift pattern and work out what's going on with this wind rather than a speed.
What I'm interested in is half the people on that boat seem to be our hard-working colleagues, enjoying the sunshine, waiting for a start. We'll have to... we'll have to.
Out.
Yeah, I think they owe us some beers when they get back in, don't you? Right, we've got 2 onboard cameras for each race, and this is one of them. It's the Finns from Nielenska Yacht Club. It's boat number 5 with the pink sail. You can just see a flash of pink at the back of the boat there. And that is Kenneth Talen at the helm. Again, a really experienced crew. They've got a 40-year-old, a 56-year-old, and ex-Olympians. And, you know, they still love their sailing. And that's what it's all about. You know, they come here with still expectations to do well and get so much out of even, you know, just the odd perfectly sailed race.
Well, exactly. Every sailor, I think, once you've got the bug of sailing, you'll jump in any boat, and what better to do it with a group of friends from your same yacht club, same sailing club, and this is exactly what we're seeing here, and why the Champions League works so well. With 32 teams, it's fantastic, from all ages, all ranges of ability, experience, and they're all out here racing on the same race course. The boats are superb for this. The J70, a great one-design boat, keeps the racing tight. It is all coming down to a lot of the skill and the tactics on board with those sailors.
Tell us, for those who've never sailed a J70, what's it like? What are the main features?
Well, it's sailed very much like a dinghy. It's just a slightly large boat, so your body weight, the movement you require in that boat has a big impact in the way that you sail it. One design, so they're all exactly the same, so it means that it does come down to, of course, how you set that boat up and how you trim those sails, but a lot of it comes down to the tactics and strategy. So there's a couple of class rules to keep that racing tight and to ensure the boats can be sailed by anyone, and it comes down to a weight category. So you'll see many of the teams on board will have 4 sailors, but sometimes there'll be teams that will have 5 lighter sailers, and I believe there's the Danish team.
Yeah, the Royal Danish Yacht Club. It's the only all-female crew, and they're allowed a 5th member just to balance up the weight.
Very much so. So teams...
Well, I say they're allowed a 5th member. They're forced to have a 5th member, because I'm sure they'd rather do it with just 4.
Exactly. So it comes down to, say, this weight limit, and where they'll have it is a lot of people. Once there's 4 people on board, it tends to leave very small amounts of opportunity for someone to climb on board. So when actually the weight spread across 5 people, and they can all be slightly lighter people, and they will certainly be favouring a day in these lighter conditions.
Our comments about our colleagues out on the committee boat, slightly barbed because we're actually sitting inside the yacht club in a windowless office that is actually boiling hot and airless. And we have to share it with all our technicians who are working hard. But you have got, Corky, a load of screens in front of you, most of them connected to sapsailing.com. And basically, what Corky sits here and does, you can do at home. You can watch the pictures on the screen, and you can log on to the website, can't they?
Exactly. Everyone can come and be their own analytics guru by going to sapsailing.com, and you'll then pick up all of the events that are tracked and run through the analytics. And of course, we're here with the Sailing Champions League final in Porto Cervo. So if you click onto that event, it'll run you through, and there'll be a list of races. Click on the races, you can watch races back. And so this is the great thing. We were chatting with a few of the sailors, and some of them have tablets out on the water connected up so they can look at their race and actually see the crux of the race. What happened? Where did their competitors come from? What was the advantages? What were the slip-ups? And we monitor everything from speed, from the wind angle, the start line bias. So from a sailor's perspective, it's great. But from us here, certainly in the studio, it's a great way to be able to provide this information. But it's all accessible for you at home through sapsailing.com on your tablet or on your home computer.
And it does mean that it gives the sailors the ability to come to us in the evening and say, you do talk a load of old nonsense. When you said this after our race number 5 or whatever it is, you were completely wrong, because actually it was like this. And then Corky goes and grinds the numbers in the analytics and goes, oh yeah, we're absolutely right.
It's lovely because it creates a really nice sort of talking point between the sailors and actually us in the studio, but also with their coaches. It's not just being seen on the water, it's an opportunity for everyone to discuss it. And many teams also bring up the opportunity to go through their races and use it as an actual analytical tool, but digest, and it's a great way for the younger sailors to learn from what was going on the race course all the way through to the most experienced racers picking up on the smallest details of their race.
What I'd say is, if you're logging onto that for the first time, onto that site, and you start playing around and you go into it in some depth, you can be a little bit bamboozled by it at first. I know I certainly was, but actually you can use it at whatever sort of depth you want, and look at it in whichever detail you want. And if you just want an overview, then you can just log on and look at the earlier pages. And Corky, you ready to give us a demonstration?
I can guide everybody through at home now. So if you go to sapsailing.com, you'll come up with this home page. And of course, at the moment, we are fully focused on the Sailing Champions League final, which is prominent at the top of the page. But if you're interested in any further events, such as the 505 World Championships or anything else, you can delve into those as you go along.
And Corky will guide you through the 505 World Championships over the next week, using the very same analytics that you can use at home.
So by going through onto the Sailing Champions League page, you can, with the tab, you can see an overview at the races, the leaderboard. And so at the top, there's the clear leaderboard. The great thing about the leaderboard with the SAP Analytics is it updates automatically by clicking the button there, and that logo flashing up as red. What that means is every race that's run, those positions will instantly adjust that leaderboard. So you can see where, if someone sat in second or third place in a race, where that will actually alter the leaderboard. And that's why we're able to bring you up-to-date standings as they're going on. So as you can see, if we look at flight number 10, first one on the right, we can see third boat down SailTracks Legal Sailing is still due to run their flight. So once that race is underway, there will be a number that will come up into that, a red number, and that will alter their position accordingly on that leaderboard. So it makes it a really good tool. Now we'll go across up to the tab races at the top end, and so you can see at the moment there is a list of all the finished races because we're currently under postponement, just waiting for the race course to get set up. When that race does, that will appear at the top and enable you to click on and watch live. But what we do now is we'll look at one of the previous races. So you can click on the race details onto replay for Flight 10, Race 3. And as your race course on the right-hand side, the list of competitors and each leg poised on that left-hand side. The timeline along the bottom, set from the start, but as you can see, clearly identified from mark 1, 2, 3, and through to the finish. So you can drag and drop to the area where you want to be to itemize that set section of the race course. Currently, the lines on the race course are determined by the wind sensors we've got out and the trackers on board the marks and the sensors around. And what this is doing is it's giving us a great opportunity to see the optimized route for a boat to sail. So there will be blue lines which will itemize the left and the right hand sides of the race course, but the bright green line is the quickest route for a boat to sail according to the wind data as it's being received. We're always talking about looking for the shortest course possible for a boat to sail, with looking for the benefits of lifts and sailing that shorter angle within the boat. And that's itemized by that green line. So again, it's great for sailors to be able to come off the water and see how close they actually sailed to that line. Where did they lose out? Where did they sail that extra distance? In our, in our post-race debriefs, we also look through at the number of maneuvers, distances required. And so it gives a good opportunity to do that. So as we drag across and look at this left-hand side now, we can see on leg 1, there is a clear leaderboard again and positions each of the boats. So it enables very simple following to which team you're after. And again, with lots more detail you can add to it, such as the speed, the distance. We can alter plenty more by going up into the settings. And there you go. If you want to completely confuse yourself or bamboozle yourself with every bit of information, click on a few of these and see what pops up on that table. But there's plenty to actually work with. Again, we can simplify this sport or we can make it as complicated as we like. And so with those legs as they go through, you can also see in that final table, the final column, you can see their overall points and where that will affect their overall points. So it gives an opportunity on that overall leaderboard. So a great tool for anyone that wants to go and just have a little bit of a play, learn about it. Again, plenty of races. It doesn't have to be on here, but head to sapsailing.com.
Very well done, Corky. That gave me time to go down to the cafe and get a cappuccino. Perfect stuff. And even better news, we're about 4 minutes away from the start of the final race of Flight 10 here in Porto Cervo. Reminder of the teams taking part. SailTracks Legal Sailing of Russia in the red boat. The Swedes, KKKK, are in the light blue boat. Axensee are in the dark blue boat. The green boat are the Poles from Yacht Club Sopot. We've also got an onboard camera with them. The Finns are in the pink boat, Nielenska Yacht Club. The team from Antibes in the south of France are in the grey boat, number 7. Yacht Club Scheveningen from the Netherlands are on the yellow boat, and the lilac boat belongs to the Finns from from the Danes, Hellerup Sail Club. So here we go. We're now watching the 3D graphic as we count down 2 minutes to the start. The crucial 2 minutes heading into the start and the final race of Flight 10.
So many of these sailors out on the water will have just been, while under that, waiting for this race to get going, constantly checking the wind, constantly doing little speed runs, checking the boat setup. But with the shifts going in across this race course, certainly trying to optimize where they want to be off this start line. Not only Are they looking to get a good start and generate enough speed away from that line? But they need to position themselves in the right place to get onto their strategy. So with 1 minute, 25 seconds to go, this breeze we've now got starting to creep up. We're seeing more about 8.5 knots, slightly further around towards that northwest side of things. So favouring that right-hand side of the race course, you'll see a lot of those boats heading out towards that right-hand side. There is a slight bias towards that committee boat as well, so different to what we saw yesterday.
So yesterday our start camera was the other side of the committee boat, so let's just get our orientation on this. This red buoy is the pin end of the line.
Correct.
And the committee boat, that white catamaran with the orange flag flying, that is the other end of the start line. So those boats are going to try and hit that start line on 0. And right now they're biding their time. They're trying to work out where they want to be, and then they're going to pull the trigger and head towards the start line.
So rightly so, they're all sitting back. It means they've got an option. It's not like a 100-meter start where it's just accelerate away from that line. These boats need to be up to speed and trying to hit that line at full speed. So it's all about gauging where that line is. Certainly you can see on board now there's clear shouts, flags being risen to say that they felt they had been infringed. We'll find out whether a flag is risen by those boats behind on the umpires, but in the final seconds, a great acceleration away from that line.
Off go the poles on boat number 4. We'll find out shortly if that was a clean start or not. Doesn't look like it because they're heading back. And then we've got boat number 2, Ostlegal Sailing of Russia, one of the favourites to catch the leaders overall, with the sailing club from Antibes, boat number 7, in second place.
So what a shame, like came off with really good speed. Boat number 4, Yacht Club Sopot, the Polish. Good acceleration, too early on that line. We saw the flag go up. When they dipped back to the line, that flag came down. So that is the only boat that started prematurely. So these boats are all in to gain for it.
And Hellerup Sail Club, the first to tack to the right side of the course, and now we have a split in the fleet.
Well, with this breeze now starting to track slightly round to the left-hand side and go a little bit lighter, so it's becoming a bit patchy across that race course. Looking at boat number 2 here, Ostlegal Sailing, they're in a strong position as long as they're going to be able to get an opportunity to tack and cross those boats. Otherwise, they're going to be pinned to this left-hand side. So now these boats starting to go. You'll see number 2 tack straight away. That is the Russian team, Ostlegal Sailing. We was talking about they needed those boats to be able to tack to give them that opportunity. A good start, but pinned them slightly towards that left side. Potentially struggling to miss that shift and come back across. But they're in a good, strong position here in a nice bit of breeze. The breeze coming up a little bit up to 9 knots as they make their way back into the mid part of the course.
We always talk when we look at the analytics about the number of manoeuvres, and quite often the boat with least manoeuvres does the best. But the Regatta d'Antibes team seem to have tacked at least 3 times on this one leg. And we've lost them there, I think.
So it shows how shifty the conditions are out there, and this is where it comes down to the tactician on board making the call of, okay, there's been a shift of 3 to 4, 5 degrees. Do we take it, or is it in the grand scheme of the strategy not worth taking? So that's what's constantly going on board, and a great first beat so far from Ostlegal Sailing, the Russian team, who are really looking to secure as many solid places to work their way up this podium.
Very little between the top 3, between the Russians, the Austrians and the Dutch. They are the first 5 boats on the screen. It'll be interesting as they come into the mark to see if the Russians can hold that lead.
Well, they've got a nice controlling position here. You can start to see those boats tack below them. They will tack directly in front of them and come back across. It means there can be a commanding position as they come into this mark. They'll be giving a dirty air to both of those boats, so that means that will slow them down and also affect their pointing ability on starboard tack, but in a commanding position as they will lead into this top mark.
Vladimir Lipavsky at the helm of the Russian boat. He's an amateur, but helming like a pro right now as he comes to the top mark in the lead.
So we can see actually overstanding that mark by some distance. So what I'm talking about is you can see how far boat number 2 is away from that white mark, and now they're starting to turn down. That's all additional distance that will add up. And if you sail a shorter distance, then boats will be able to close that gap. A great hoist. Spinnaker sets cleanly, and that will also give them a good projection away from this mark.
The Austrians around as well. We're looking back from the Finnish boat. Great skill needed in these really busy races at these top marks, with helms slotting their boats into the smallest of spaces and obviously always having to avoid contact with their opponents. And we fly along the fleet to find our leader, Ostlegal Sailing of Russia.
So the Austrian team jibing and putting an attacking maneuver on the leading Russian boat here. Both jibing. You can see how light the breeze is. The team's all favouring keeping boats in the centre of the boat in the cockpit. You can see a couple of those actual sailors on board moving their weight further forward, trying to reduce the friction of that big boat at the back end of that boat, trying to get the narrow pointy end into the water more and lift that out. So reduce friction and create speed. So again, they're all one design, so it all comes down to the crew and how to maximise that.
Now, right now, this is proving a bit of a disaster for the team in the grey boat, boat number 7, the French team from Antibes, because they still had great hopes of moving into a podium place overall, but they're currently sitting down in 5th, and that knocks them down the leaderboard. So it's looking good for Ostlegal Sailing. If they stick to this position, if they can seal the deal on this race, then it'll put them just within 5 points of the overall leaders. But it's close, you know. It's still a difficult one to call, with the Austrians hot on their heels.
Very much so. And with these shifty conditions, it is all about favouring where those shifts are coming. And so a great decision from these lead 2 boats as this breeze moves round towards that right-hand side slightly. It's dropping. We're down to about 7.5 knots again. So little puffs as they come through. It's up to about 8 or 9 knots. But certainly that gate mark, that favoured left-hand mark as we're looking at it, putting a good position. So again, the Russian team controlling where they want to be. Good shift, taking that tack and controlling the second place. So it's all about them securing the highest possible place.
So at the halfway mark of race 4 of flight 10, the Russians are in control, followed by the Austrians from Achensee. Then come the Dutch from Scheveningen, and then there's a battle for 4th and 5th between Société de Regatte d'Antibes and the Finns from Nielandska Yacht Club.
So that angle's a great shot of those lead 2 boats taking that shift. They're in that darker patch where there's a little bit more breeze in the middle of the course, but are on a lifting tack. So they're on the optimized tack. Those boats sailing out towards that right-hand side are all sailing on that negative back. Now their second place boat takes that tack. Will we see the first place go with them? Yes. So again, we're looking more into a bit of a match race. They're feeling quite comfortable with where they are. They're happy with their shift pattern, and it's all about controlling those 2 boats. But if they get too focused in on each other, it's very easy for that Dutch to sneak up behind them and actually claw in a few places.
The Dutch still just managing to stay in touch with the leading pair, but the rest of the fleet well behind. So I think now we're really watching the battle for 1, 2, 3, but especially for 2nd and 3rd. Can the Dutch from Scheveningen keep up the pressure?
Well, we're seeing some superb sailing going on from these top flight boats. They are just tacking together simultaneously and controlling each other. Second place is focused on third, first place is focused on second. Now we're starting to see a little bit of a split from that first place. The Russians, Ostlegal Sailing, heading out towards this left-hand side a bit and happy to leave second and third, having their own little dogfight. So trying to control, but superb racing. As we come up to the top end of this race course, again, the breeze starting to go slightly lighter. We are getting closer towards that shoreline again, and that will just mean the breeze going a little bit lighter, a little bit more shifty. But here we go, as the split came in, they're still comfortably in front. But you can see how much even just an umpire boat making that move across those waves that they're about to tack into will be very slow for the boats. They're tacking right into those waves there. Nice and smooth through it, but any movement like that will change the shift on the rig. But very comfortable positioning at the moment. I'd be surprised if many place changes on this downwind leg to the finish.
Ostlegal Sailing qualified through Act 1 of the Champions League a few months ago in St. Petersburg. They came through in 6th place. But second overall in their national league, so real pedigree from the team from Vladivostok, who without a doubt are the team that have travelled the furthest to be here, as the Austrians round the mark in second place, and the Dutch trying to close the gap on them for third.
Problems with the kite on the Austrians as they went round. We saw them try to hoist it, the halyard being stuck underneath the spreaders. Still trying to pull it. There wasn't a clear communication. We saw one of the sailors climb up onto the bow, flick that out. But with first place going round, a straight, clean set, all of these things will just allow them to edge out and extend that lead. And we can still see up over now, close to 40-metre lead.
And Hellerup Sail Club from Denmark bringing up the rear, just rounding the mark now. And there is a wonderful shot of the fleet heading towards the finish line. Just a couple of minutes away, and the Russians will be claiming a victory in this final race of Flight 10.
Exactly what they needed. They need every race win possible, and with this will bump them up into third place, 1 point off second, and certainly with 2 more races to play, all still in it to win it.
Now, the Austrians rounded that top mark at about 40-45 metres behind, but have managed to close the gap a little bit, although it's unlikely we're going to see them reel in the Russians, because they're just going to run out of racetrack, and very soon we're going to see that finish line come into view as the Russians from Vladivostok, they've won match racing, they won the Match Racing Nations Cup last year. It's an amateur helm, but he's got a pro crew in front of him, so very experienced. They know what they're doing, and it's unlikely we're going to see them get anything so disastrously wrong that the Austrians can close that 40-metre gap.
The likelihood is that you'll see it probably extend a little bit towards the finish, because second place, the Austrians will start keeping an eye on that boat behind them, wanting to secure their second place. And with the gap as it goes forward, it'll all be driving down into that position. So as they come into the finish,
Vladimir Lipavsky, the helm, crosses the line to claim the 4th victory of this regatta for the Ostlegal Sailing team, with the Austrians from Achensee right hot on their heels. Nico de la Carth at the helm, crossing the line in second place. And in the end, the Dutch really weren't that far behind. Scheveningen Yacht Club crossed the line in third place. A good result for them. And then KKKK of Sweden crossing 4th, with the French team from Antibes in 5th. And then come the Finns from Nylandska, and the Poles, who went back and had to start again because they were over that start line early. Yacht Club Sopot never quite managed to recover from that. But what a great result for the Russians, for Ostlegal Sailing, a result that puts them 3rd overall in a podium place, 3rd overall for this regatta, just 5 points behind the leaders and just 1 point behind second place Société Nautique de Genève. We'll confirm the overall leaderboard in a moment, but confirmation of the results of this particular race, the end of Flight 10, on your screens right now. So as we wait for some of the data analytics to come up for Corky to analyse, and we'll try and see where the race was won and lost.
So certainly seeing a greater number of manoeuvres on this race course, even though it's a short race course with the different conditions, the shifts, and also now we're getting into these final few races, every single battle matters. So that one extra place, trying to secure that and getting focused on their rivals, and so securing that. So we saw a lot more kind of match racing, boats being a lot more aware and attacking and also defending. So we see the Russians there a lot greater distance. We saw them over that laid at Windward Mark numerous times. Good boat speed, but those extra manoeuvres coming in more to just protect their position. So that won't be that they've added an additional load of manoeuvres in for no reason. That is just to keep themselves positioned firmly between the mark and their competitors. So speeds again slightly slower, certainly from the Swedish team there in fourth place, quite a significant amount slower.
So where does this leave us with 2 flights to go? So each team now has just 2 races left before the end of this Champions League final. And you've got to say that Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, the local team, very much in control with a 4-point lead ahead of the team from Geneva on 28, and then the team that we've just seen win, Ostlegal Sailing, on 29 points. Now, right behind them, another Russian team who've done pretty well so far in this regatta. Lord of the Sail, we'll see them in action in the next race. Then come the second and final Italian team in the competition. The Germans always so strong, and with 4 teams in the Champions League final, we only see 2 of them in the top 10 and none of them in the top 5, which is a surprise because they are all strong teams, especially NRV. They won the St. Petersburg qualification round and are currently sitting 7th after a really poor first day.
Well, interesting, when we look at that leaderboard as well, there are 16 points up for grabs. So any of these top 10 boats could finish up if that lead boat was to have 2 bad races. And certainly we can see in race number 6 for 4th and 5th an OCS in both, which that could have been the championship for them, and we would have hated to come down to that situation, that one race, that one mistake on that start line could have actually cost them the championship. But we'll only find out in the next coming flights.
32 teams. Let's see how the others outside the top 10 are sitting. Société de Regatta d'Antibes have dropped down to 11th because of that 5th place finish that we've just watched. And Segel Club Matze of Austria, they came into this as one of the favourites. They've got a really young crew who impressed so much in qualification by winning the event in St. Moritz. And out of their 8 races in St. Moritz, they were first or second in all but one of them. But look at their results here in Porto Cervo. Obviously very different conditions, and for some reason they have struggled. Bottom of the leaderboard. Hellerup Sail Club in 21st place. And then we have the Swedes in 30th. Scheveningen, who managed a 3rd place finish in the race we've just watched, sitting down in 28th. And there are the final 2 teams. Port Edgar Yacht Club from Scotland and the Lithuanians in 32nd place. So we are now on board Lord of the Sail. They are boat number 5 and they are about to get race 1 of flight 11 underway, which, by the way, is the 41st race of this regatta. It's quite a logistical operation to keep things running so smoothly, and we have to say that so far the race officials have done a really terrific job. So Lord of the Sail from Yekaterinburg in the Ural Mountains. We are their guests on board, and it looks like they're just trying to fix a few technical issues on the boat there.
Yeah, it certainly looks like they're focused in on the main sheet track or the Traveller. So that is a vital bit of kit that will need to be working for this race. So clearly a little bit of time just while they're doing. And as I say, one of the members on board holding the Russian flag as well, feeling pretty patriotic at the moment.
So the way it works, if you're new to the Champions League, is we have 8 of these J70 boats and obviously 32 teams. So one team will board a boat and they will race the boats, and then as soon as the race is finished, and it's amazing how it works like clockwork, a rib comes alongside, one crew gets off, the next crew get on. They then have a couple of minutes to look around the boat, check that everything is working, that there are no breakages, and if there isn't, then that's fine and everyone carries on. But if there is, they have 2 minutes in which to notify the officials that there is a problem, and I'm guessing that that is what's happened on Lord of the Sail, the Russian boat.
Well, just finding out a bit more information about that. The flag that they actually were holding was a repair flag to warn everyone that that was going on. We can see there in shot now, the team all back on board, that rib moving away, the flag being stuffed back inside the buoyancy aid, and they are now ready to race.
Evgeny Nyugodnikov at the helm. And enjoying the sunshine, and they were pointing out that it's pretty much winter already where they've travelled from, and so they're thoroughly enjoying these conditions in the Mediterranean off the Sardinian coast right now. So let's just have a run through who is on which boat and who to keep an eye out for. Well, boat 1, Alanska Sail Club from Finland. Boat number 2, that's with the red sail, Frederikshavn Sail Club from Denmark. Boat number 3, with the yellow bow and the yellow sail, the Société Nautique de Genève. So let's keep an eye on them. Second placed overall. There's no opportunities for slip-ups for them. Yacht Club Sopot, back-to-back races for them. They're back in action and staying on boat number 4, the green boat. We've spoken about Lord of the Sail already. They're on boat 5. Boat 6 with the lilac-coloured bow and sail, Hellerup Sail Club from Denmark. Boat number 7, the grey boat, again, back-to-back races for the French from Antibes, and then GVK from Lithuania are in the light blue boat, boat number 8. Do we have a start time?
Not at the moment. It's still just waiting. You can see the start committee boat all gearing up ready, so they were just waiting for that repair to go into place. And it looks like that the flag being hoisted there, the red flag, identifies that they will be heading up towards the red mark at the top end of the course.
So the top end of the course, they've got 2 buoys, a red and a white.
Exactly that. And so it just means that with the conditions as they are, with the changes in the wind, because we've got such a tight schedule, as you've just mentioned, with the rotation of teams, having a couple of marks in at that top end gives the race committee a choice of which mark to go to, depending on the direction of the breeze or the strength of the breeze.
So under 3 minutes to go now as we get underway, flight 11. For the 8 crews out on the water, it's their penultimate chance to shine in this Champions League final here at the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda in Sardinia. And for those hoping to chase down the local club and claim victory overall themselves, time is running out, especially for the Société Nautique de Genève. They are 4 points behind the leaders overall, and they are in the yellow boat, boat number 3. All eyes on them, no pressure.
Well, certainly coming down to these last couple of races with how formidable the home favourite team have been at the top of the table, it is going to require them to have a little bit of a slip up. But we have seen in a couple of races they've had a 6th and an 8th. So anything is still possible in this racing, but they are going to rely on that. Even with securing 2 race wins, it is going to need more from them to have a slip up for the other teams to have a chance at this.
And certainly in qualifying, the Genevans seem to lack that killer instinct. They qualified in 8th place in St. Moritz. They had 4 podium finishes, but only 2 victories out of their 8 races. So there seems to be a lack of killer instinct there. Or is there? They've managed 3 victories so far in the regatta here in Porto Cervo, and all but 3 of their 10 races have been podium finishes. So what can they do now? Can Guillaume Giraud, the helm, and Matthew Fisher, and Mark Stern, and Nicolas Kaufmann pull the rabbit out of the hat, win this race, and then it's just a case of hoping that the Italians slip up? And the Italians aren't invincible. They have slipped up in earlier races here, only in 2, but nonetheless they have shown that they are fallible. So 45 seconds to go. Start line right in front of our camera, between that red buoy that's just coming into shot and the committee boat.
And we can see the Swiss team favouring that right-hand side of the mark, and completely at the opposite end, the other boat we're really keeping an eye on, Lord of the Sail, the Russian team in the pink, now starting to drive forward with speed. Again, it's all about timing. They're going to be early at this start line, so they're going to have to slow the boat down now, and that's going to cost them. So we can see them trickling forward too fast up towards this start. They are early. I would certainly say at the moment they're right on the borderline. They've dipped back down.
And you'd think the Poles on the green boat, who got it all wrong in the last race, you'd think that they'd make sure that they were right this time. We'll see what the officials decide. But Lord of the Sail, closest to us, are away.
And a big tack-off from the far side from Société Nautique de Genève, taking that tack straight off, the only boat to have tacked off onto port and heading out towards that right-hand side of the course. But not a great start from the Russian team. Arrived too early, were dipping down when the gun went, so by the time they actually turned and came back up, it's a general recall. And now looking at that boat, on the committee boat, you can see the blue and yellow triangular flag. That means there were too many boats over that start line. So a bit of a reprieve from for the Russians there to return after that start.
I think of all the racing we've watched throughout the Champions League season, that was probably the messiest start that we've seen. How and why they reached that start line quite so early, I'm not sure. But I'm surprised, really, that the Poles, 2 races running, have got it so wrong. You'd think that they would just hold back just a little bit and make sure they get it right this time, because they were so close to a good start in the previous race and just messed that up. You'd think they wouldn't take a risk this time round.
Well, it's a really difficult thing. When you're on the start line, one boat starts to move forward next to you, you have to move forward a little bit, because if you allow someone to move forward on you, they can roll over the top of you off that start line, give you dirty air, and you can instantly need to roll into attack, and your strategy can completely change.
Rafał Selvicki, the helm on board the Sopot boat, a coach himself, one of the Polish sailing team coaches, so he'll probably take a little bit of ribbing for that. Let's have a replay then.
So we can see Lord of the Sail down at this end, dipping down actually when the actual start of the race happened. And so by the time they actually come back up onto pace, it was these boats across in the middle that were clearly up. But anyone that started to get too close towards that line, as soon as they're too close to that line, it's all about slowing rather than trying to hit with speed. A great start coming out from Société Nautique de Genève, heading out towards that right side, splitting from the rest of it. But normally where we would have a perfect line from the fleet going across, you can see exactly how you mentioned that it was a pretty scattered start and a lot of people out of position.
Yeah, fascinating stuff to drill down using those graphics, drill down on the details of these starts. And I think some of those, the helms and tacticians, will be taking a look at that when they come back off the water. So we're in a holding pattern now, as they just rearrange things, set things up, and prepare for a restart. 2 minutes to go, and we're back where we were 5 minutes or so ago.
So exactly now, so all the teams are rethinking it. It will start to get them a little bit nervous, a bit on edge, and they'll all look for that better position on the line. All that happened was, as a fleet, they all came up to that line a little bit quicker and a little bit earlier. With 20 seconds to go, a lot of them were all sheeted in and going for speed when there wasn't the distance from that line. So it then was a matter of trying to kill that speed.
And you can understand why they're taking risks. The Russians, for example, they've got nothing to lose and everything to gain from an excellent start. And just a few seconds could mean the difference between moving up into third place overall or dropping down. So, you know, if they drop down a couple of places with just one race to go, then so be it. But I guess there are teams out there now who know they have to take risks. The team, of course, that won't be taking risks are the overall leaders, the yacht club, the local yacht club from Costa Smeralda, and we won't see them in action. I'm just trying to see on this schedule. Yeah, we won't see them in action until the last race of this flight. So they have a bit of an advantageous position there going last. They'll see exactly what their opponents have done.
Well, that's the great option of that. They'll see all the points stacked up in front of them. It will all be clear for them. They have got a little bit of a buffer, not anything to be complacent about, but certainly depending on how these races lay out, that buffer could become greater. So you can see there, clearly looking at the time, the helm doing the time, stood on the back of the Russian team there.
And is that generally how they divide it up? We'll just watch the start before you before you explain that to us. So they're on zero, they're away. The Russians in the middle of the fleet there. The Poles this time seem to have got it right. We'll get confirmation from the race boat. It looks like a clean start. And first away, Hellerup Sail Club of Denmark with that lilac sail, sail number 6.
So a good start from a couple of these lead boats. A tricky position at the Lord of the Sail. The Russian team we saw on board are in the pink sail, number 5. Bows there, you can see all aligned, but they haven't got the opportunity to be able to tack off due to that boat. Boat number 8, just tucked up behind them, the Lithuanians. They are holding position. So once they've tacked, so now the opportunity is free for the Russians to do. So actually it was a good start, but not wonderful. But as soon as you haven't got an opportunity to take attack and take that shift, you're suddenly being controlled, and the way that race is being controlled rather than sailing your own race. So you can see how similar these boats are in speed. That bow just nudging forward up in that windward boat. You can zoom in now towards the Russian team that we've been talking about, boat number 5, as half the fleet separate off towards that right-hand side. This breeze is favouring the left side at the moment, 8 knots that we have across that race course. And you will start to see these tacks go in from, there we go, boat number 6 taking that tack. It won't be long before the Russian team also go with that. Here you'll likely see them go now, but those 2 boats have gone. They're looking like they're just settling into this nice bit of breeze, giving themselves some breathing space, but they seem comfortable up on this left side. Now the tack goes in, and here we are. We've got a complete split. We have Société de Nautique de Genève out onto the far right-hand side, alongside with the French, and then the Russians far up onto this left-hand side.
Let me just run through the order as things stand. Lord of the Sail, the Russians out in the lead, only just. The Société de Regate d'Antibes in second place. Then comes Hellerup Sail Club of Denmark. Then Frederikshavn Sail Club of Denmark. GVK of Lithuania in 5th. And the Poles from Sopot currently sitting in 7th.
So again, solid performance from these lead boats. We're seeing them come from this left-hand side with the breeze being in this left phase. In the lighter sort of modes here, we're going anything from down to 6.5, 7 knots and creeping back up to 8. So it is challenging conditions where we're changing gears, changing modes in the boat. You can see the sailors, some leaning out over the side, some moving their weight back in. There'll be constant changes going on to keep that boat powered up. If you just quite happily sit with exactly how it is now, there certainly won't be, when that breeze changes, there'll be consequences if you do not adapt to that.
So the French have now taken a slim lead as they come up to the top mark. And we saw yesterday that in this particular regatta, whoever hit that top mark, that first mark in the lead, generally held on to that lead, but conditions a little bit different today with lighter winds. So we'll see how this one pans out as the French head in towards the mark, ahead of the Russians, who will tack now and begin their rounding. The Danes, Hellerup Sail Club, just behind in third. The Poles doing their own thing. We're on board with the Russians.
A great set from those lead 2 boats as those kites went up, popped straight away, clearing themselves away from the carnage unfolding behind them at that mark.
Lithuanians go wide and they're round. Ahead of the Danes from Frederikshavn. Then come the Poles with the green spinnaker. And look at that, Société Nautique de Genève on the yellow boat, penultimate. This is a disastrous race for them so far. They've got 3 legs to put this right.
Yeah, certainly not where they wanted to be going round that top mark. With these short courses, of course, with the shift, there's anything to possible, but very difficult with the expertise that are on board these teams.
As we fly forwards to the front of the fleet, you can see just how close it is between first and second.
Great to see how confident the Russian team here now, looking straight at Lord of the Sail, feeling comfortable with, happy to break away from the fleet. We've seen a lot more guarded sailing going on from the teams coming into these final races, trying to secure their points, but very happy to break away. You'll see them go into a jibe very shortly to attack that gate, but what they're doing there is just holding a higher line into that gate, mean they can control a little bit more speed. So as once they've gone through that jibe, will bring up their speeds, coming down towards that gate mark. So there we can see now just starting to creep up, and they're all very similar speeds, but we're starting to see 7s appear from Lord of the Sail and that higher end of 6s. So they have got better speed as they come down towards the gate, and that is down to that higher angle. But to create that, they've had to sail a greater distance.
Now, yesterday, these legs were taking about 3.5 minutes, so short legs. It's taking slightly longer, I think, today, because the winds are slightly lighter, but still, short legs, meaning the slightest mistakes are paid for big time. Here we go, then, bottom mark, and the French come in, ready to round that mark, and then head off back upwind for the last time. Halfway through the race now. The French, a slender lead from the Lord of the Sail team of Russia, and then come the Danes.
So quite a big bias towards that far mark. So where the French team led round, that furthest gate mark has got a bit of bias to it. It means it's closer to that windward leg, so it is the more preferential mark to go to. An interesting split as the Russian team, Lord of the Sail, took this near mark because of the way they had sailed down that downwind leg.
Yep, the Danes, who also chose the same mark as the French for a short period, took that second place position, but the Russians are back in there now and moving away from the Danes, but obviously all on opposite ends of the course. And the only people to follow the Russians were the Lithuanians from GVK heading this way.
Certainly looking at the angle of sail, the Russians sailing a slightly lower angle, and that's what I'm seeing within regard to the speeds. They are got a little bit more speed, just a 0.2 of a knot faster than most of the other boats, which is going to see them in a good position, but it also means that they will have to sail a slightly greater distance. So we'll see how that pans out as they go into attack now. And this will be bringing them back towards the middle of the fleet to where the first cross will happen.
And that will give us an idea of exactly where everybody is. And it looks like the Russians may come out of this on top.
Well, they're neck and neck, but they have got the rules stacked against them here. They are on port, so they will be the boat keeping clear of the French boat approaching on the right. Have they got enough space to get in front? We shall see. That will be a call made from the French boat. It's going to be very tight. Looking at that graphic there, I'd expect them to go behind here. And there it is. So the French forcing attack underneath. That's a very aggressive manoeuvre in the sense they want that right-hand side of the race course. They don't want the Russian team to approach that right-hand side. The French taking that tack, forcing the Russian team back out towards that left-hand side of the course. So a good manoeuvre from the French there, showing there's plenty of aggression coming into these final races.
Hippolyte Machetti of France on that French boat, at the helm of that French boat, imposing his dominance on the race and now opening up the lead. The Russians behind, and you've got to wonder at this mark if the Russians will have slipped down to third and the Danes can pip in there and grab that third position.
Certainly looking very tight. It was a good, strong manoeuvre. They will have had to do 2 additional tacks because of what the French tactic was there to force them towards that left-hand side. They're clearly, with the wind and how we've got it on the analytics as well, favouring that right-hand side, which there we're now seeing the lead, and as the French cross clearly in front of the Russian team. But it's all closing up, as you say, with the Danish team tucked in right behind them.
So it's as we've been at the last couple of roundings, with the French in the lead. We're on board the Russian boat. Looking back, you can see just how close the Danes are.
So a good manoeuvre there again from Lord of Sail. They positioned themselves slightly higher above that ley line. It allowed them to go round smoothly around that mark. You saw the Danish team just behind, having to stuff that boat a little bit harder to squeeze around that mark, and that's what's just opened that little bit of a gap between them.
So Danish 3 and 4 at the moment. I don't think Frederikshavn Sail Club on this short final leg are going to be able to take third place from Hellerup. Then come the Poles, and then come the Société Nautique de Genève, fighting it out for 5th and 6th place. At the moment, the Genevans look like they have ruined their Champions League prospects.
It has been an absolute shocker for them in this race, and currently, without any of the other boats racing so far, this will see them bumped down to 6th place, and we could see that get worse depending on the races that pan out on the further flights. So certainly not the race they were looking for.
They started in 2nd, they're currently in 6th. A disaster for the Genevans, who are just going out of shot on the left-hand side of the screen there. The yellow boat fighting it out at the back of the fleet. Who would have thought that going into today's racing? French in control now. They just have to stay calm. Guillaume Giraud. Sorry, he's with Geneva. Wrong call on that. I was trying to say Hippolyte Machetti on the French boat, at the helm of the French boat, just having to make sure his crew carry out their manoeuvres as smoothly and as trouble-free as possible, as the Russians seem to have taken the lead.
This is very tight for 2nd and 3rd place here. So you can see the French boat out in front. Lots of breathing space for them, but it's so
close. I'm going by the data in the top left corner. It's so close that even the analytics can't keep up. But the French still out in front. So just in case I gave the French fans a bit of a heart attack, and in fact They're just a few meters from the finish line, with the Russians still 20 meters behind and the Danes in third place.
So it was very, very tight as they jibed together. A poor jibe from the Russian team there gave the Danish team a jump, and now they're starting to creep away again. We're now starting to see a little bit of space from that. We'll see similar jibes going in here. The Russian will just try and get a little bit further away to give them a bit of breathing space and clear air.
And the French from Antibes, from the French Riviera, so used to sailing in the Mediterranean, have used that experience to win this race, the first of Flight 11, followed closely by Lord of the Sail, who are, of course, chasing the leaders on the overall leaderboard, and we will see how that, where that has put them shortly. Then comes Hellerup Sail Club of Denmark, and then the Red Boat of Frederikshavn Sail Club, the other Danish team taking part in this particular race. The Poles come in behind them, but what a shocker for the Genevans. We don't even know where they are. We'll find out shortly as they come into shot right at the back of the fleet. And we'll see them just come in to the line very shortly. There they are. So the Genevans finally cross the line. They are going to be so disappointed. Guillaume Giraud and his team, with Matthew Fisher, Nicholas Kaufmann and Mark Stern, they're all going to be extremely disappointed. And I think we've seen the end of any hope of catching the leaders and winning this Champions League final for the team from Geneva.
Exactly that. Their start was what put it down to all the pressure. A little bit of a poor start. They forced out towards that right-hand side early. We're up into 7th place as they went round that top windward mark, and it was all to play catch-up for. But with the depth of knowledge and experience within these teams, they're not going to let any places go. And that was a hard-fought battle, but has been one that is going to have a serious impact on their overall standings.
So as the crews swap and prepare for the next race, maybe we can have a look at the analytics for that race. Corky, take us through it.
So there we go. Look at the distance it's actually sailed, and the one that jumps out, one considering they were the speed they actually were on, but also the distance was a radical difference. So very, very different on that side of things, but showed how close that racing was. But you look at those two top teams, and the distances, the speeds, the manoeuvres, all very, very similar. And then we suddenly draw down to the Swiss team, Société Nautique de Genève.
So explain that. Less manoeuvres, faster boat.
Well, the problem was, as they came off that start line, they were further back in that pack, so they did less manoeuvres by taking one tack. It's a bit of a strategy or a tactic that sailors do. If something happens or goes bad, they'll end up doing less manoeuvres and just sailing to one side of the race course. That means you potentially miss out on benefits of shifts and lifts and gain those advantages, and you just tend to go into a bit of a straight line speed mode. So they did a long way out towards the right-hand side, then into the windward mark, and then a long way back again.
Well, let's see what that result has done. It's destroyed the Genevans' hopes of catching the leading yacht club and has thrown them down into 5th place on 34 points, 10 points behind the Italians. But a good result for Lord of the Sail. That 2nd place finish leaves them in 3rd place, and now the Italians are just trying to fend off the battle, the chase from 2 Russian teams.
It's going to certainly be a pretty interesting next couple of flights. Still with, that was only the first flight, flight 10, but that was race 1 of that flight. So plenty more races to go in and see that leaderboard shuffle about.
And of course the Italians will be competing in, as we said earlier, in that last race of the flight. So until this flight is over, that leaderboard is going to be, well, almost meaningless.
Exactly. We know there is 16 points available for 2 maximum point races, which we have seen them slip up and pick up a couple of higher penalty races, but will we see that? At the moment, they went out, they won the last race, they seem to have settled in, and actually the pressure is still on them at the top of the table, but actually it's on more of the other boats playing catch-up. They just need to sail sensibly, put in 2 solid top 3, top 4 results, and they should be fairly comfortable.
So race 2 of the flight will be getting underway shortly, and we'll be back with the pre-start of that in 2 minutes and 43 seconds as our drone flies over from the yacht club on the Costa Esmeralda, the Emerald Coast, one of the most exclusive yacht clubs, but one of the most exclusive resorts, if not the most exclusive resort in Italy, and one of the most exclusive in Europe. In summer, in the height of summer, this bay is full of super yachts and the most amazing boats.
This is where you keep yours, or?
It's where I keep mine. Not quite sure where it is at the moment. And it's a privilege to be here, and it's a privilege to watch these beautiful images off the water. And it's an opportunity for me to fill you in on who is on which boat. So, the Nielanska Yacht Club from Finland are on boat number 1 with the dark blue sail. Then Port Edgar Yacht Club from Great Britain on the red boat, boat number 2. The second Italian team that are currently sitting 4th overall, the Circolo Canottieri Aniene from Rome, they're on boat 3 with the yellow sail. Ekholms Segel Club of Sweden are on boat 4 with the green sail. The pink boat has Regatta Club Bodensee of Switzerland on board. The lilac boat, boat number 6, Ostlegal Sailing, currently placed 2nd overall, and realistically, possibly now, the only team that can chase the leading Italian boat. Boat number 7 with the grey sail, the German team from Wannsee, and then Yacht Club APCC from France are on boat number 8, the light blue boats, the team from Nantes in France on the Atlantic Ocean. They are in boat number 8. So that's how we're set with just under 40 seconds to go.
Well, looking at the course, we have a strong committee boat bias, so you'll see many of them bunching up that end and wanting to be on that right side. And also the wind is in a right-hand phase, so meaning there is the advantage to that side with 9.7 up to 10 knots of breeze. So this breeze is on the increase, and this is exactly what we thought the wind was going to do, move from that westerly to more of a northwesterly direction. They're looking very early up into the middle of the line. It's looking very close. Certainly a few of them well over. Postponement flag's gone up. The red and white stripy flag on the committee boat. So this breeze moving further and further around towards this right-hand side, making this course very uneven and unfair. So the race committee decided to postpone in those final few seconds of that race. They'll go back to reset.
And that'll be a relief for the Scots from Port Edgar Yacht Club, because they were heading towards that start line and heading towards a recall.
Again, so really interesting in these final couple of races. Bit of pressure starting to apply. People taking a few more risks, but...
Well, the Scots have got nothing to lose. They're penultimate in the leaderboard. They're just here for fun now and for pride.
Exactly that, but you still got to be sensible with your tactics and your strategy. And they were up very early onto that start line, and we're going to have to do a big dip down, which would have seen them scrub a lot of speed off on these boats, and they would have certainly lost advantage on that race. So the boat there in that top left-hand corner, it looks like a party boat, but a lot, that is where the sailors camp out when they're not on the ribs. So there tends to be the next flight of sailors on those ribs.
So it is a party boat.
So it is a party boat. Certainly where the
No, I'm not making light of. They're all taking it very seriously indeed, and and although I sound like I'm being sarcastic, I'm actually quite serious. Last night we were talking certainly to some of the leading helms, and they were all very serious indeed. And I think most of them left the sailors' party and dinner long before we did.
Very much so. Well, they're here for a focus. They wouldn't be here for anything else. They've got their club reputation, they've got their own reputation, and they've all come out to win. I'm sure a few of the teams that were a little bit further down the pecking order might have enjoyed an extra beer or two, but otherwise, certainly for the ones fighting it out for these podium spots, it was all focus, and you certainly weren't going to shake or break that focus.
Remember, we're watching some of the most successful and prominent sailing clubs of Europe doing battle on these Mediterranean waters. It's the climax of a 3-event season in the Champions League. They've qualified through their national leagues. They then had to qualify through the 2 qualification events in St. Petersburg and in St. Moritz over the summer. And finally, they've made it through to the final. And they've worked hard to be here, and they want to perform well here. But right now, the whole regatta is in the control of the host club, the yacht club Costa Smeralda, who haven't had to go through qualifying because they're hosting the final. We thought that might put them a little bit out of practice, but clearly not, as they sit 5 points clear at the top of the leaderboard.
Well, with the J70 such a prominent class here at the club, it is one of those boats that they get out on the waters, and what a chance to be able to sail on these waters and do it day in, day out. How much time they've had in the boat training as a team, we're unsure, but certainly when you've got the caliber of those kind of sailors on board, they each, once they know their role, know the communication, they all can play a vital part, and that's exactly what they're panning out.
So race 2 of Flight 11 still postponed, and conditions changing all the time, it seems, out on the racecourse. And we'll be back as soon as that postponement flag comes down on the committee boat. Welcome back. Alec Wilkinson and Corky Rhodes with you in Porto Cervo for the final of the Champions League. And 1 minute and 25 seconds to go to the start of the second race of Flight 11. We're in the penultimate flight, so time is running out for these teams who are trying to catch the Italians on the overall leaderboard. Conditions a little bit mixed as the day has progressed. We had some pretty steady breezes this morning, but things, we've had a few hiccups along the way, so a few postponements, but it looks like we've got some action now, Corky.
Yes, we've got a nice breeze from this west, slowly tracking round to the northwest, where we're due to see that breeze increase. And it's just because that breeze coming off the land, making it a little bit trickier for this race course to be set up. So we saw on that last race, a postponement going up due to a big wind shift. We have 8.5 knots out on that race course, a committee boat by a start line, but it's breeze in a left face. So you'll see most of those teams making their way towards that left side.
They're all looking nicely positioned with 20-odd seconds to go. And a little bit of a ballet dance going on between boat number 7 and boat number 4. Boat number 4 with Ekholm Segel Club of Sweden on board. They're closest to us. And 7, the Wannsee Yacht Club from Germany, edging forward. And it looks like it's going to be a clean start. No risks taken there. And they're all away with the Germans and the Swedes. And in Lilac, Ostlegal sailing team of Russia heading the fleet away. And it's the Russians we're particularly interested in because they're currently 2nd overall on the leaderboard, although we're on board with Regatta Club Bodensee. So
a great start from the Russian team, Ostlegal sailing there from the middle of the fleet and off that line. But favouring this left-hand side, you can see the Swedish team just starting to slide back on pace again from the German team just up above them. But most of the fleet favouring this left side of the course, as we thought, with the wind clocking round towards that left-hand side. Just a couple of boats peeling off towards that right, looking to clear their air. We will start to see these boats go now. They're all starting to hit into a bit of a header, and you'll start to see these boats tack out.
But currently, the Germans from Berlin with sail number 7 leading the fleet upwind. I've tried to pronounce their club name in German. We've got a few German colleagues who seem to find it hilarious. It doesn't matter how often I try it. It's never quite right for them. Vereins Seglerhaus am Wannsee. And they fall about laughing. But anyway, they're the Wannsee Sailing Club from Berlin, a very well-known, famous sailing club in Germany with much pedigree and many titles to its name and in its history. Jochen Schumann's club, the famous German Olympian, sailing there regularly, and they are currently leading this race.
So a great shot of the fleet all in this left shift, sitting up onto port tack as they make their way back across towards the fleet. And the boats over that right-hand side now as they close out towards the mid part of the course. You'll see a few of them starting to come back across, try and get in touching with these arrowhead of the fleet at the front here. And we're panned down on this left side of the course. These guys are quite high up towards the ley line, so not a huge amount of breathing space for these 4 boats.
On the far side of the course, the Italians from Rome, the Circolo Canottieriere, making good progress and working their way up the fleet as well, currently in 2nd place. But always difficult to make a call on this first leg in the Champions League. It's always close. And it's more of interest, really, who reaches this first mark in the lead. Because I think the pattern today certainly has been that whoever gets there first is often in the lead as they cross the finish line.
We have seen a fairly stable position for those front 2, 3, up to 4 boats as they go round. So we could see similar, but here we go with the boats coming in from the right. They're a little bit further back. This breeze going slightly lighter. And now a bit of a puff coming in from this left-hand side. So you see these boats accelerate. But these boats coming in from that left are on port. So it is the boats on the right with the right of way here. But it does look like they'll squeeze in front.
And it looks like Nielenska Yacht Club of Finland are going to be rounding this top mark in the lead.
So it is this yellow mark as that flag displayed on that starting boat, the yellow flag. And here they squeeze these top 3 boats, so all coming from that left-hand side, looking for a bit of space.
The Germans squeeze in 2nd, and then the Russians, Ostlegal Sailing. Every position lost for the Russians in this race will cost them dearly on the leaderboard.
So you can see those boats peeling out. Port Edgar Yacht Club, the British guys jibing round and getting stuffed on that mark and way out the back. You can see how slow that penalty turn being taken now. And they're going to struggle to get back and forward. And so there was a penalty between these guys here. Regatting Club Bodensee. They are holding the flags out, and that penalty being applied to the British team, which sees them sunk at the back of that race.
Let's fly downwind and have a good look at the front of the fleet and what is going on there with the Finns in the lead.
So everyone sitting up onto this starboard jibe, running down a very long sort of jibe down this way. You won't see many people peel out too early. They'll all go quite similar times. There we go, the first and third boats going. A little bit of separation from the second boat, just trying to get away a little bit.
A 20-metre lead for the Finns. Immense experience on board that boat. They've got George Tolberg, a name that might ring true bronze medalist at the Moscow Olympics, 56 years old now. Moscow 1980. Corky, where did they hold the sailing?
Well, as I wasn't even on this world at the moment.
That's not an excuse. It was held in Tallinn.
There we go.
And that's where George Tallberg won his bronze medal in the 470. And he's now absolutely enjoying himself out at the front of this fleet and rounding that mark at the halfway stage of the race. The Finns look in control with 2 legs to go. Second place, rounding that mark, are the Germans from Berlin. Jan Jasper Wagner on board. They made 3 changes since qualifying in St. Moritz, so 3 new crew members on board. And the Russians now in second place, according to the data that we're seeing. It's close, though, between them and the Russians. There's a real battle going on for that second place. And remember, the Russians are still chasing the title of Champions League champions. So they're in second place on the leaderboard.
A great shot from up here. So you can see the breeze circulating down here and being squeezed in through these channels. Greater pressure here, looking for those darker spots on the water. That's what the sailors will be keeping their heads out of the boat. The lighter spots going to mean less breeze. But again, depending on that shift and depending on the breeze, so we can certainly see a lot more coming down this right-hand side, which is going to favour our lead boat here, who's come out towards that right-hand side. They will have looked up over towards that. We have the 3 marks set out here. It is the yellow mark that they will actually be identifying. So looking at that, I would have probably said it is that middle marker as they come back in towards the mid part of the fleet. Again, they've just taken that tack out. This is your lead boat here, taking that tack out, looking for that clear bit of pressure out into that top right as we look at it.
And you get a really good idea from that shot of the course layout, and the relatively short distance of each of these legs.
So some tight battles going on here with these 2-3 boats at back in the fleet there. We can see them ducking and diving in between each other. You'll see another tack out probably to clear their space, but these guys have forced themselves quite high onto this ley line, certainly looking towards that left-hand side. This boat now just tacking in here, way up over the ley line, as we've got it.
That's the Italians from Rome, who've had mixed fortunes here in this regatta, sitting in the top 10.
Well, we've seen some superb results from them. That one wobble in Flight 6 with that OCS, but otherwise a very decent set of results across the board, and certainly be looking to up their pace.
But somewhere on this leg, the Germans took the lead. You were showing us the wind. You were drawing those wind patterns on the screen, and we thought that was going to favour the Finns. But the Germans from Berlin have taken the lead.
Well, what they did was, as I say, going back and just having a quick look at the analytics, were that as the German team mirror imaged and followed the team across towards that right-hand side, they had good breeze into that ley line and actually were sailing a little bit faster coming into that mark. So
around the top mark first. Up goes the spinnaker, downwind they go. It's a sprint now to the finish line for them. Second place, the Russians still trying to hunt down a first place. And then come the Finns. And for them, it's a battle to hold on to third place, because the Italians are breathing down their necks, as are the Swiss from Bodensee. And you can see just how far back the Scots are from Port Edgar Yacht Club in Scotland.
Well, with the results as they stand at the moment, Osligo Sailing with a second place would see them second overall, with fellow countrymen Lauder Sail tucked in just behind them, 2 points behind. So it is a Russian 2 and 3 on that podium.
And actually, we've just seen the Scots come into that mark penultimate, so they have actually made up a place, made up a position on that leg. Right, let's go and follow the battle for first, second, third and fourth. It looks like the top three are moving away now from the rest of the fleet, and the Finns trying to stay in touch with the Russians, whilst the Germans are away and heading towards that finish line. Jan Jesper Wagner at the helm, fourth in the National League 2 years ago, second in the National League in Germany in 2016. The National League, a really well-established, high-quality competition in Germany, proving that this team from Berlin have real quality.
Well, really a drag race down this last leg with the wind round to that left-hand side. Breeze up to 10, 11 knots. It's just a straight run through to the finish, and this is exactly where these guys are going to be headed.
Opening the gap between them and the Russians in second place. And a few celebrations on board as they cross the finish line. The Germans have it, the second race of this 11th flight. The Germans cross the line in first, with the Russians in second place. Then come the Finns. Regatta Club Bodensee of Switzerland, and the Italians from Rome, the Canottieri Agnini Club, with the yellow sail crossing the finish line now. And the Swedes, who are languishing near the bottom of the overall leaderboard, finally finish now, which leaves us Port Edgar Yacht Club of Scotland, just coming into shot now. But what a race for the Germans, who seem to have put a pretty good campaign together there. And they've developed, I said they'd made 3 changes to the crew coming into this competition. They struggled a little bit in the first couple of days, but that was their 3rd victory in a row. A late charge on the leaderboard. I suspect a little bit too late, though.
Yeah, certainly looking at those points, I think it could be late for all of them. Everyone is poised, waiting to see how the home yacht club Costa Esmeralda are going to get on in their final flight. But we have still another flight to run before that, and it is all panning out in front of them. We can see certainly it's not going to change second and third place or fourth due to all racing already. So they instantly know they still have a little bit of breathing space and a 7-point lead over that. So all of that is a matter of trying to reduce that and secure plenty of first places and keep that gap.
So that's confirmation of the result of race 2, flight 11. The crews now swap boats, and we'll be back with the 3rd race of flight 11 shortly. Just a few minutes away from the start of race 3 of flight 11. And in this race, in boat number 1 with the blue sail, it's Cape Crow Yacht Club of Sweden. Then come the Austrians in boat number 2, the Austrians from Bregenz Yacht Club. That's got the red sail. The yellow sail belongs to St. Petersburg Yacht Club of Russia, and they are numbered 3. Boat number 4 with the light green sail, the KKKK Yacht Club from Gothenburg. And then boat number 5 with the pink sail, the Dutch from Scheveningen. Boat 6 with the lilac sail, another Dutch team from Almere. And then boat number 7 with the grey sail, they are the Finns from the city of Vasa. And the light blue sail, boat number 8, are the Norwegian from the Royal Norwegian Yacht Club. 40 seconds to go.
So the wind starting to increase up to 11 knots. So we're going to see some great racing here, but going to be interesting with how the boats control the speed. They've been sailing in these lighter conditions. Now these boats have got a little bit more momentum behind them with this little bit more speed. We've seen them all approach the start line a little bit early. So again, keeping eyes on how this start pans out. It's all going to be about their gauging on how far forward they are. So as we look at that line, it's all going to be about the acceleration. Now they should all be going. They're a long way back from this line. So certainly no problems with anyone being over the line on that one. All sitting back quite a long way. There was opportunity for boats to take that gain. Port end bias, so we've seen boat number 6 squeeze round that pin end. But for the boat number 8, that's given them a great opportunity to just fire forward on that line.
So a great start for the Royal Norwegian Yacht Club. Christian Nergart at the helm. They made a complete crew change from their qualification round in St. Moritz. So 4 new sailors on board this boat for the Royal Norwegian Yacht Club. But they certainly had a good start this time round, and they're bow to bow with Almere Central, one of 2 Dutch teams taking part in this race. And we're on board with that second place Dutch team from Scheveningen, the pink boat, boat number 5. And they're currently sitting in 6th place as the fleet makes its way up the first leg to the top mark. Early days yet, anything could happen, especially in these changing conditions.
So great onboard footage to see how much you can see this sailor on board having that glance underneath, keeping an eye on the boats beneath before they go into that maneuver, making those tactics, making that call. It's all about having your head out the boat in these kind of conditions. This light to medium conditions with wind off the shore, very shifty, opportunities everywhere.
And we talk about how important crew work is and how important it is to make these manoeuvres smooth. This is another team that have completely changed their lineup from their qualification round in St. Petersburg. Simon Annink at the helm, and he was telling me on Friday he'd only had 3 hours experience helming a J70 before this weekend.
Certainly not a lot, but again, a lot of all the principles are the same within sailing, and as I say, it sails like a big dinghy, so as long as your crew works good, they're quite easy to get to grips with, and that's certainly what these sailors are doing now.
But as the fleet begins to spread out as they approach that top mark, we're beginning to get a feel for the order of things, with the Dutch and the Norwegians fighting it out for first and second, and the Swedes, Cape Crow Yacht Club, so inconsistent in previous regattas and on previous days here in Porto Cervo, just trying to stay in touch.
So just a great start from these 2 boats in camera now. As they came off that pin end, and it was just a simple strategy. Go out towards this left-hand side, take 1 tack, and make their way back in towards the fleet. They're just all about speed in this current conditions. The boat coming in from the right-hand side, they're on the slight knock on that heading starboard tack, so it is favoritism to all of these boats coming in from the left-hand side.
At the front of this cluster of boats are the 3rd-placed Cape Crow Yacht Club from Sweden. A young team with Patrick Sturesen, 25 years old, at the helm. Most of them all used to sailing together in M32 Cats, so very different conditions here. As they come into the top mark with the Royal Norwegian Yacht Club, rounding that mark first. Then come the Swedes. And Almere Central of the Netherlands in 3rd place. Then comes the green sail of the Swedish club, St. Petersburg Yacht Club. They did so well in St. Petersburg, qualified in 3rd place as a wild card entry, and they're round in 4th and 5th. Penalty turn for the Swedes.
We saw as they came in tight towards that top mark, and whether there was an infringement held on St. Petersburg Yacht Club as they tried to round as well. So a quick penalty turn at that top part of the mark has dropped them back, but they are still very much in contention with these boats.
So a disastrous manoeuvre for KKKK of Gothenburg that's led to them falling way down to the back of the fleet. And now we're seeing a separation. The first three are away. Cape Crow Yacht Club, the Royal Norwegian Yacht Club, and the Dutch from Almere Central are away. Now, can they continue to open the gap? It certainly seems that they are. And I think as they approach the halfway mark of this race, barring disaster, we're looking at the top three for the race.
So certainly we're seeing this breeze now starting to creep up. We were looking at the forecast earlier, speaking to a few people, and it did say this breeze was going to clock round a little bit towards further around to the north and start to increase. We are starting to see 12 knots appear a bit more frequently on our stats here. So that is going to provide some great racing, but it also will throw a few more captions into the opportunities for the boats going downwind.
So the leaders choose opposite ends to round, with second and third going their own way. John Den Engelsman of Almere Central choosing the right-hand side and choosing to follow the Norwegians.
So the breeze favouring that left-hand side again. We're looking at that pattern. You can see those darker patches now being funneled down between the islands. So you can see this lead down. This is where this breeze is being squeezed. This is where that channel is going to be forced. That breeze now being able to get round that headland, but you are going to start to see some patches of breeze in this sheltered section over towards this left-hand side. We are still a long way away from that as a race course, but you can now see boats delving into that breeze a little bit more easily. 11 to 12 knots on that race course, with it favouring that right-hand side slightly.
And interesting that we've got a split left-right, but also two boats choosing right to go right up the middle of the course.
Exactly that is still shifty due to the wind coming off the land, and that's something different that we didn't have yesterday. We talked about that it actually became a bit more of a drag race, the same strategy for each team. Well, now this is opening up opportunities for boats in the middle to be able to capitalise on those gains.
And there we're watching 1 and 2, Cape Crow Yacht Club and the Royal Norwegian. First and second with the Dutch.
Yes. They'll tack probably straight on top to actually keep an attacking position. There we go. So we see that tack going in. That's a controlling position. So they can just shadow them back across towards the middle of the racecourse.
Cape Crow Yacht Club currently leading this race. And they're the current Swedish National League champions from small islands near Gothenburg, competing in their first Champions League and putting on a good show. Some inconsistent results, but they're pulling it together in this penultimate flight of the Champions League final. Patrick Sturesen, back of the boat there, leaning out, focused on where he wants to go, but also keeping an eye on the opposition that are just the other side of him.
Well, even though these racers do a lot of races across the whole Champions League, there's little time they're actually in the boats. They have a little training time, and so as the teams start to gel and get more comfortable as this back part of the course, this is exactly what we're seeing with the Swedish team here, Cape Crow Yacht Club.
So, as the Swedes and the Norwegians round the mark, that gap between third and the rest of the fleet has disappeared. St. Petersburg Yacht Club now in third. Not quite sure what happened to the Dutch, but they had a disastrous third leg and are now sitting back in fourth. Nicely positioned, though, to come back and maybe grab that final podium position.
Well, looking at the track that they went from, they went to the left-hand gate mark, as we're looking at it, so upwind, then that was the unbiased mark, and then they tried to stay in that central phase, and boats just either side of them, staying with less manoeuvres, better boat speed, just crept up, and that's dropped them that one place as they came into that top mark.
There's still nothing in it between first and second place. So we're watching a battle for all three podium places here between four boats. Can the Swedes hold on, or can the Norwegians hunt them down in the last few meters of this race?
Well, very, very tight. As you can see, sort of only the bowsprit nearly creating an overlap, as we see there.
And what will the Norwegians be trying to do here?
So what the Norwegians will be doing is just trying to hold their line. If they've got a straight run to the finish, there's very little they can do. They can only just sail them up a little bit higher. But looking at where the angle is on the analytics, they look slightly high coming into this finish line. So what they're doing is they're holding that position, which means that the Swedish cannot jibe in front of them. They're holding that position. If they go to jibe, it will infringe that boat. The question is whether the Swedish boat will be able to soak low enough, which they're starting to do now. You see that angle come down, the speed there. They're remaining clear at the moment. Very, very tight to the finish.
And the finish line just come into view. You can see the committee boat as they approach that finish line, and you can see just how close it is. And it looks like the Swedes have got it, sneaking in at this pin end of the finish line, just ahead of the Royal Norwegian Yacht Club. What a fantastic battle that was, right to the finish line. But who's going to take third? It looks like the Russians did manage to open up some space between themselves and the rest of the fleet in the end. St. Petersburg Yacht Club take third place, and fourth goes to the Dutch from Almere Central Yacht Club. Here come the rear-enders. Boat number 5, Yacht Club Scheveningen of the Netherlands, fighting it out with the Finns from Vasa. And then the Swedes, who had that penalty turn to do at the first mark, never really recovered, with Yacht Club Bregenz of Austria bringing up the rear. But a fascinating race, a fantastic final few metres. But in the end, it went to Cape Crow Yacht Club. They managed to hold on. The youngsters from Gothenburg got the victory just ahead of the Norwegians. And the Swedes will be particularly excited by that, because that was their first victory of this Champions League final, which belies the fact that they have improved over and over again as the regatta's gone on. They've had a third, they've had a second, and now they've had a first in succession. So we'll be interested to see how they sail their final race. But no changes to the top leading sailing clubs in the overall leaderboard. Confirmation of the result of race 3 there. And the final race of Flight 11 will be coming up shortly. And so you've pressed your buttons, Corky. Let's have a look at the analytics.
There we go. So nice and clear to why those front two boats just escaped away from everybody a little bit more. Lower distances, lower manoeuvres, and look at the speed, certainly from the Royal Norwegian Yacht Club, and that showed holding right to the finish line. If they had been able to have that little bit more breathing space, maybe down that last leg, that could have been a different finish. But these short courses, it's all about making those gains when you can. And again, the manoeuvre starting to come up, and that's exactly what we picked up on the Dutch boat, Almira Central there, with 9 manoeuvres, slightly higher. That was where they tried to sail a few more tactics up that middle section on leg 3. And that's where we saw them drop that extra place that put them back to 4th. So that's where they potentially lost out, and something they'll go back and look at in the analytics.
Well, the crews have swapped places already, and our crew here are the Royal Danish Yacht Club from Copenhagen. Celebrated 150-year anniversary last year.
The club did, or they did? Because they certainly don't look 150 years old.
No, although these ladies, the only all-female crew in this competition, do have an immense amount of experience, despite their young age. Henriette Koch at the helm, London 2012 Olympic competitor in the 470, World Match Racing champion a couple of years ago as well. And that sort of experience runs right through the crew.
So this is the crew as well, where there is 5 of them on board. We talked about the weight limit on the J70 a little bit earlier, where most of the crews favouring 4 people. That is due to a weight limit. You can also go slightly lighter and gain their extra person on board. And with the 5 females on board this boat, that is the difference between the other teams.
Don't think we've got a start time yet for this next race. We'll leave you with these wonderful onboard pictures. You can watch their practice and little bits of training that they're managing to do whilst they wait for their instructions to get into the pre-start. And we'll leave you with these pictures just to see just how smoothly these ladies operate the boat. Welcome back, Alec Wilkinson, Corky Roads with you, and 2 minutes 20 seconds to the final race of Flight 11, the penultimate flight of this Champions League final here in Porto Cervo in Sardinia. On boat number 1 with the blue sail, we've got Lindauer Sail Club of Germany. Matzey Sail Club of Austria are on boat number 2 with the red sail. The Austrians from Achensee are on boat number 3 with the yellow sail. The green boat, and we're on board with them. We'll be getting close up and personal with them a little bit later on. The Deutsche Touring Yacht Club of Germany. Boat number 5 with the pink sail is the Royal Danish Yacht Club. NRV of Germany are on boat number 6 with the lilac sail. Boat number 7, that's the grey boat, the French team of Saint-Quentin near Paris. And the light blue sail team, boat number 8, are our current overall leaders, Yacht Club Costa Smeralda of Italy. Can they hold on to that lead? It's for them to throw away. They go into this penultimate race with a 7-point lead. So it's up to them to throw this race away, and if it's a disaster, they may well do it. But they have been consistent, they have been strong, they have sailed efficiently throughout this regatta, and have only really been out of the podium places twice in 10 races. So it's not looking good for their opponents, but will the pressure show? We shall see. On board with the all-female Danish team, as we count down to the start, Henriette Koch at the helm, Josephine Ball Rasmussen, Tina Schmidt-Gramkov, Hella Oram-Ridding, and Nina Simon Valeska-Grudov. Probably the longest names in the fleet, and 5 of them on board because of the handicap and weight system. So here we go with 15 seconds to the start, and it looks like Achensee of Austria are out in front in that yellow boat right now.
Very close coming into these final few seconds, pushing close to the line, but will be a clear start with the speed. There's the gun goes. And who is it? Straight out of the middle is your leaders.
Costa Smeralda of Italy, hitting that line bang on 0, and we've had no recall.
And that image just sums it up. These boats clustered down towards the pin end, starting to shuffle up. Look how close they are on board. Very little space to maneuver around and keep that sail driving. And that's where these are all clustering each other, when actually for the Italians off just up above them, a bit more breathing space, and will be at full flight.
The Austrians tack away behind the Danes. The Germans had already gone, but the Danes sticking with their route up this side of the course. The Italians, remember, boat number 8 with the light blue sail. They're the ones to keep an eye on. Will they be losing places? Will they lose any of their advantage at the top of the leaderboard?
Here are your two fastest boats. So boat number 8 just tacking off. The Italians, the leaders overall, and also NRV here. Tommy on board, sort of helming that boat, looking for that bit of speed, and he's squeezed it out in front, going into attack now. Got the space to be able to get across. They've got to do everything possible to secure as many good races. A nice tack there. Good shift with the breeze now, up to 13 knots, favouring in this left-hand side. It's for all of these boats, but a solid performance from the Italians, exactly where they needed to be coming into this top mark.
Flavio Favini at the helm of the Italian boat. America's Cup, 2 America's Cups behind him as a helm and as a tactician. Up against the German helm on board NRV, Toby Schadewald, with London 2012 Olympic experience in the 49er, and replacing the regular helm on board this boat. Johannes Polgar got them through qualification. They won the St. Petersburg qualification, but now they're here trying to chase their way up the leaderboard after a disastrous first day. But they've got it together. They proved that yesterday with some really good results, and they're back chasing the leaders now.
Well, certainly how things stand, it will remain at that 7-point gap to second place. So going into that final race, if they can hold on to this, we're very early on, so I'm not certainly counting any chickens at the moment, but going into that final race, all they would need to do is finish anywhere but last to secure their championship, which is a pretty strong position going into that final race. But as we're only on leg 1 here, but they're in a strong, dominant performance.
So right behind the first 2 boats, it's chopping and changing of positions. It's a difficult one to call at the moment. We shall see as they come into this top mark who are 3rd and 4th at the moment. It's a battle between the French from Saint-Quentin and the Germans of the Lindauer Sail Club. But the leaders from Yacht Club Costa Smeralda are in the lead and are looking good for another victory here on home waters.
Exactly where they wanted to be round this, but again the kite getting caught under that spreader. Second time it's up right behind them. The German team applying their pressure, soaking slightly lower. You can see the angle now, the breeze coming in. We've got up to 14 knots of breeze. That is going to allow these boats to soak lower, accelerate using the waves. It's quite flat compared with what it was the other days, but they're certainly going to be able to use the gusts.
The Danes are round, deploying their spinnaker. And so the French in 3rd place, followed by Lindau Sail Club of Germany. Boat number 1. And then Segel Club Matze of Austria, the team that were amongst the favourites, winners in qualifying at San Moritz, but haven't really performed to the best of their abilities here in Porto Cervo.
So there you can see great acceleration and speed from Norddeutsche Regatta Wein. They got good acceleration and they soaked low straight off that windward mark. The kite hoist was good. They had good speed. There was no boats coming round behind them straight away, so it gave them a bit of breathing space, and that has put them in controlling position here. So they are neck and neck, but good boat speed there. We can see an extra couple of knots because they're sailing slightly higher angle, but that is going to give them the advantage as they come down into this gate mark. So no surprises. Quickest boat on the water down this downwind leg is the Germans that there take first position. What a difference in boat speed, and that is quickly turned around and changed for the Italians. But they've got to stay focused on the bigger picture. A first or a second is a comfortable position. It's all about consistency for them. For the Germans, it's all about claiming as many first places as possible in these last couple of races.
A tremendous overtake there from the Germans, so much faster. And interestingly, they had issues with coming together on board because of the changes on day one. And their helm, Toby Shadowalt, made a few changes to the way they were operating and brought it all together. And the tactics there were right spot on. And now they're extending that lead at the front of the fleet. But the Italians staying in touch. It's not over yet.
And watching that as they came round, it was nearly a mirror perfect as 4 boats went one side, 4 boats the other, and as those lead boats come in for this cross in the middle of the fleet to start with, it is still advantage to Norddeutsche Regatta Wein. As they start making their way into the middle of the fleet, they are just coming across to control the rest of the fleet. As soon as you're in the middle of the course, you can get out towards that left-hand side, get out towards that right-hand side, a clear cross going into attack now. So an aggressive defensive maneuver by attacking straight on that will see the Italians force out. There we go. So there's 2 types of covering, shadow covering or aggressive covering. And that shadow covering is where you're just following someone along. You're not giving them dirty air or affecting their space, or hard aggressive covering, exactly what we saw there, where you tack directly into their wind, give them dirty air, and it forces them to complete 2 more manoeuvres.
So a bit of a match race going on between the first and second place boats. But what's happening behind them, because the battle for third is still wide open, currently being held by a sailing club that was way back down the fleet on the previous leg. Seagull Club Matze have made up positions. They're in third place now, but it's pretty close. Look how close they are with the French, who were previously holding third place. The Club Voile Saint-Quentin with the number 7 boat pretty close on that cross.
So a great team effort here from the German team. Norddeutsche Regatta Wein straight in front of the Italians again. An aggressive manoeuvre. You can see that mainsail starting to get a bit of effect from that dirty air as it flows off the back of those sails. But they'll be happy to hold that position coming in towards the top end of the course, because they're all in contention for these top spots.
And right across the fleet, in comes that blue sail of Lindauer Seagull Club of Germany. And we'll see what that does as they come into the mark. I think it's probably moved them up the fleet. The Germans heading for the mark.
We have got the strongest breeze we've had all day out on the water now, nearly just shy of 15 knots, which is why these boats are suddenly eating up the ground around this race course. And this race is unfolding pretty quickly in front of us as they all go on to the last leg. So the German team, Norddeutsche Regatta Wein, they lead. That was all down to that second leg downwind, greater boat speed, saw them nip inside the Italians. The Italians
Matze around in third place. And boat number 7, the French, who are really fighting for a podium finish in this race, are right behind them as the Danes round the mark. And you can see Deutsche Touring Yacht Club with the green sail bringing up the rear.
So you can see how hard fought. Look, here's the whole fleet. Only a couple of boat lengths separate the bulk of them, but out in front. And again, pulling away is the clear speed difference between the German team, Norddeutsche Regatta Wein. Their speed up by half a knot quicker downwind than the rest of the teams. And this is exactly what we're seeing, why they're pulling away from the Italians. But the Italians will be quite happy, sitting comfortable, knowing a second place, done. It's all on the other teams to be able to perform in this final race. One more race to go. They're sitting pretty comfortable.
And interestingly, points-wise, position-wise, after this flight, nothing has changed, because the top 3 teams all finished second in this flight. So it's exciting, it's dramatic, but nothing has actually changed amongst the top 3 in the overall leaderboard. But what is changing is the position of NRV, who are now up to 6th after being way down the leaderboard where they're not used to being early on in this regatta, they have put on a fight back and they have made their way back up and into the top 10, and it wouldn't surprise me if they finish top 5. But right now, they approach that finish line with their lilac sail. Toby Shadowalt, who celebrated his birthday just a few days ago, 33 years old, is now celebrating a victory, another victory here, their 4th of the regatta in Porto Cervo. Flavio Favini helms his team across that finish line for a 2nd place finish for them. And then comes the 2nd German team taking part, Lindau Segel Club, who've kind of come out of nowhere for that 3rd place finish because the battle was between the French and the Austrians. And in the end, what happened to the French? Well down the fleet, they had a disastrous final leg, and so did Segel Club Matse. We'll get confirmation of those results shortly. But Saint-Quentin finished 4th then, and Matse down in 6th. Tremendous race, textbook stuff from the Germans, and the Italians, well, a shrug of the shoulders from them. They won't have liked to have been overtaken, but in the great scheme of things, they are still very much in control, and the Italians still hold on to a 5-point lead overall. Now, hopefully the analytics can help us with a little bit of insight into how it was that NRV picked Yacht Club Costa Smeralda in this race.
So again, we can see the speeds. The speeds are across the whole race as an average, but higher speed, we saw the massive difference down on that 2nd leg, on that downwind leg. Quite considerable difference of speed between them. That added manoeuvres coming in to the Italian boat in 2nd place there was potentially drawn from that additional couple of tacks that they had to do when that aggressive covering manoeuvre came in from Toby from Norddeutsche Regattaverein. Much shorter distance sailed, but that could have been the Italians' downfall, is that they weren't sailing high enough angles on that downwind leg, which generates apparent wind, generates speed from these big asymmetric spinnakers. If you try and soak too low, you don't get that apparent wind and that build-up. So we saw them very quick downwind and pulling off a couple of different manoeuvres yesterday in the lighter conditions, but it sees that actually it's the other European countries that have the stronger breezes really favouring that sort of stronger breezes. We've seen it build up over the day.
It is interesting that when we were on the lake in St. Moritz, many of the teams that shone there were teams based on lakes. So lots of Austrian, lots of Swiss teams from Lake Constance and so on, really shining. But here, struggling an awful lot more up against the teams that are used to sailing their races on the sea. So here we go. This is how things stand going into the final flight, the final race for each of these teams. Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, the home team. They haven't had to go through qualifying as the host club. They are sitting pretty, 5 points clear at the top. Then it's Russia in 2nd and 3rd. Ostlegal Sailing, Lord of the Sail. Again, some really good performances from them over the last few days. Sitting there and hoping and waiting for the Italians to mess up on their final race. NRV, who won our last race, sitting 6th. 32 teams involved. Let's work our way down the leaderboard and see where everybody sits. Segel Club Matse, the winners in St. Moritz, a disappointing 17th place for them. St. Petersburg Yacht Club, not as successful as they were in St. Petersburg. They're sitting 22nd. And there are the final 2 with Port Edgar Yacht Club, full 9 points ahead of the trailing Lithuanians. So that's how we stand going into the final flight. The final 4 races of the Champions League final here in Porto Cervo. We'll be back in a few minutes with the conclusion and the climax to the Champions League season. Welcome back to our live coverage of the Sailing Champions League final from Porto Cervo in Sardinia. I'm Alec Wilkinson, Corky Road, sitting beside me with all the analytics and data coming off these boats, and a minute 25 seconds to go to the start of flight 12. 4 races per flight, 32 teams, but the teams we're interested in this final flight of the weekend are, of course, our top 3 teams, and the second place team, Ostlegal Sailing, are in action in this first race. So let's run through who else we've got. Boat 1, the dark blue sail, Regatta Club Porto Cervo, Switzerland. Boat 2 with a red sail, the Finns from Vasa. Yellow boat, yellow sail, Boat 3, Port Edgar Yacht Club from Great Britain. Boat number 4, light green sails, the Deutsche Touring Yacht Club of Germany. Then comes Almere Central of the Netherlands on boat number 5. Boat 6 with the lilac sail, Yacht Club Sopot of Poland. And then all eyes on the grey sail of boat number 7, Ostlegal Sailing of Russia, who have to finish in the top 3 for there to be any hope of catching the leaders. And boat number 8, the light blue sail of the Finns from the Alanska Sail Club. 15 seconds to go, Corky.
Wow, exactly what you were just saying there. Boat number 7, the one we're watching, way out the back on this start line, taking attack now to try and dip behind them, but certainly not the start they'll be looking for off this race. Their clear start, the flag goes down, we are racing. Boat number 7 heading out towards that right-hand side, that is Ostlegal Sailing. They are the guys we're focusing on with a chance to try and squeeze this gap.
And Sopot of Poland also going the same way with a terrible start at this pin end. They're heading off up to the right side of the course. But right now, the leaders look to be Regatta Club Bodensee of Switzerland with the number 1 sail, followed closely by the green sail of Deutsche Touring Yacht Club of Germany. Also in the mix, Port Edgar Yacht Club from Scotland with the yellow sail.
Well, currently the only saving grace at the moment for Ostlegal Sailing after that start is the wind is in this left phase. So being on a port tack is going to give favouritism to that. The breeze up to 16 and a half knots now. But they are firmly in the middle of the course, making their way towards that right-hand side when we've seen time and time again the lead boats come in from this left-hand side. So it may look comfortable for them at the moment. But with these lead boats taking this tack onto port now and starting to come and approach that windward mark, we could see that places suddenly skid them back towards the back end of the fleet.
But the Russians on the far side of the course, currently sitting near the back of the fleet and in need of something special to pull a result out of the hat.
Well, all I can say is the only people that will be feeling fairly comfortable at the moment will be the Italians that are leading overall, watching this race with curiosity to see where Ostlegal Sailing come out. At the moment, we have them at the top of the table, but that's the furthest ones out. But with the breeze round towards this left side.
And in the foreground, our second-placed boat, Deutsche Touring Club of Germany. Maximilian Weiss at the helm and trying to stay in touch with the first place boat from Switzerland, from Bodensee, helmed by Massimo Sariano.
So the Dutch there, Almere Central taking another tack out. That's going to be costly, sailing a lot greater distance out towards this ley line. And puts them in no opportunities for if there's any other shifts. So not a great position for them. As the fleet come charging across, you can see the teams all up onto the sides, stretching their arms and legs out, trying to give as much leverage and weight over the side as they possibly can. With 14.5, 15 and up to 16 knots of breeze. This is the strongest breeze we've seen over the last couple of days.
But things happening over on the other side of the course, because the data has given the lead to the Russians, Ostlegal Sailing, as they approach that mark at the top end of the course. But of course, they've got a long way to come in, the Russians, and I don't think they're going to be in that top position when they reach the mark. But time will tell, and there's not long to wait. These legs quite short. More of a sprint than a marathon, these races, about 3 minutes per leg.
That breeze looking slightly soft on this side now and looking a bit stronger out towards with the Russians. Slight lift up on that right-hand side, so that is flipping the favour to them. But now this breeze starting to clock back round towards the left, up to 14.5 knots. So these boats coming in from the left, there's certainly going to be a few of them crossing the Russian boat, and that is going to put dirty air and disturbed water around this windward mark. So we're going to probably see a bit of carnage at this top mark as they unfold.
It's going to be a real traffic jam, a time for nerves of steel. And with it so close, none of these teams will want to put penalties on themselves. But equally, the Russians may choose to try and stay a little bit out of trouble.
So as we're coming in here, they have right of way. They are the boat in the middle of the screen. Big bear away from that, so that has handed them the lead there. Thought they might be able to squeeze in front, and that could have really caused issues, but it is Osligo Sailing that have taken the lead off that. They had a good lift off that start, squeezing round that windward mark, and there, this is where it's going to get very, very tight for Deutsche Touring Yacht Club. There's going to be penalties handed out. This is going to hand it to the Russian.
Contact with other boats, contacts with the mark. There's going to be penalties galore as the Russians head off into the distance.
And that couldn't have played out any better for them, just with how tight that was. Too many people trying to squeeze in on that ley line and not enough.
Well, Deutsche Touring Yacht Club completely stopped and going backwards, just regaining control. The Finns from Vasa Sail Club all over the place on that mark right now. And one of the boats that was at the back is making its way around the mark now. Number 3, Port Edgar Yacht Club, just staying out of trouble and have moved up 2 places just by staying calm and staying out of it. But look at the Russians at the top of the screen, increasing their lead by 50, 53, 54 metres. They are away, and if previous performances are anything to go by, it's going to be pretty unlikely that they are caught. Vladimir Lipavsky at the helm is not going to make any silly errors. He's got a professional crew that know what they're doing, and the Italians watching from the sidelines know that their regatta isn't over yet. They haven't won it yet.
No, as I say, with the pressure firmly on them, the Russians have done exactly what they needed to do. Come out all guns blazing, put the best score they could on that, and it is all down to the Italians and whether they can lose it.
But it was, as you predicted, Corky, it was carnage at that top mark, and the Russians knew they had to get in there first, because if they'd been stuck mid-fleet or even 2 or 3 places back, they would now be at the back of the fleet like the rest of the teams. Instead, they round the mark. They head downwind. Sorry, they head upwind for the final time as they head onto leg 3, the halfway point of the race, followed by Lanska Sail Club of Finland.
So we see those lead boats go round this right-hand gate mark. It is what looks like the unbiased mark as we see it, but there's good breeze coming down from that right-hand side now, up to, again, 15, 16 knots as they go back upwind for that final time. You can see how spread out the fleet is, all because of that carnage that unfolded at that windward mark, due to too many boats trying to squeeze in, misjudging the ley line.
But if you're stuck in mid-fleet and you're coming up to the mark like that, what do you do? Do you really hold back and keep out of trouble?
This is one of, again, the looking as far forward as you possibly can. A lot of people were risking trying to go too close to the ley line. The ley line, you know, perfect position to go straight into the mark. But what you've got to remember is the further down that ley line you are, if you're in exact line with the other boats, you're going to get dirty air, not be able to point as high. The boat will be going slower, the water's more disturbed, so you're better off sailing a little bit further, having clear air, but being able to sail that greater distance around the trouble.
Yacht Club Sopot of Poland on that lilac boat, being followed by Port Edgar Yacht Club. We're looking sort of middle of the fleet here.
And look far out towards the opposite side. Osligo Sailing, the Russian team, have led at that top mark. After not a great start, they ducked behind everybody, went out on port, but it was the lifting tack. They had good speed out towards that right-hand side. It certainly looked like they might have got pulled back by a few of those boats in that top end of the fleet. But that breeze went slightly softer on that top end coming in from those port boats, and it just gave them the advantage to nip round that mark.
First and second matching each other for speed right now, as the rest of the fleet play catch-up.
Much greater speeds, obviously, now enhanced by this stronger breeze. This breeze was due to increase and build as the afternoon goes on, and that's exactly what we had. Starting in 5 to 6 knots of breeze at 11 o'clock this morning, and now through to a good 15, 16 knots of breeze, and just superb sailing conditions out on the water.
Andrei Kochnev, Igor Larionov and Nikolai Kornev on the edge of the boat there, helping their helm get the balance right, racing it to the max.
So interesting, the tactics on board. You can see the helmsman and now the crew alongside them. That means he is playing that main, controlling the traveller, controlling the sheet, so it's becoming too much for that helmsperson to do on their own, certainly with the stronger breezes. When some of the other crews, you'll see all of the crew members up on the side, going for counteracting with weight, and still letting the helm do it. But you can see a lot more people now getting that boat in.
And you can see the distance now with this shot between first and second place. And here they go. They round the mark for the final time and begin their final leg, not just of this flight and of this race, but of the championship. They have done everything they can do. Ostlegal sailing from Vladivostok are going to win this race as they head towards the finish line, and they can do no more. They just have to sit and watch now as the Italians will come out, and they will be hoping, with all fingers crossed, that the Italians mess it up. But a great performance by this boat, the second place boat from Finland, Alenska Sail Club, doing the business in second place, looking confident. The team from the Elland Islands, the oldest Finnish sailing club, established in 1897, so even older than the yacht club we're at, the yacht club Costa Smeralda, with all its pedigree. And the Finns are going to finish on a high. But what a gap between them and the leaders.
Exactly, we can't even zoom right in on the leaders. There they are looking back. We can see, looking back across the fleet, you can see the conditions as the boats are surfing now in these waves. Much better condition, working a lot harder, trimming that kite. And this is the Dutch team trying to squeeze inside the Finnish boat here, and they are making great progress. But there, that is the gap. That is why you can see it. 114-meter gap for the Russians and extending.
So as they head towards the finish line, it is an interesting battle for second place between the Dutch and the Finns. And that is a battle we will watch as soon as we follow the Russians across the finish line. Vladimir Lipavsky at the helm. The crew will celebrate having done all they can do. Second place in the overall leaderboard. First in this race. All they can do now is sit and wait and see what the yacht club Costa Smeralda does. They'll be hoping that the Italians mess it up. But the Italians have proved themselves supreme on this course. So well done to the Russians. They can do no more. And who got second place? In the end, it did go to the Finns. They managed to hold on. Alenska Sail Club of Finland ahead of Almere Central of the Netherlands. Well done to them. Dutch champions coming in third here in the final race, their final race of the Champions League, with Yacht Club Sopot of Poland coming in right behind them. So Sopot were fourth, Regatta Club Bodensee of Austria in fifth, and that is the Deutsche Touring Yacht Club who got it all wrong. They were caught up in that mess at the first mark. They come in sixth, and Port Edgar Yacht Club, who had moved up the fleet, managed to lose another spot and are in seventh place ahead of the Finns from Vasa, who are yet to finish. But a definitive race for the Russians. They really took command, and there were some clever tactics. They knew they had to keep out of the mess at the first mark. They did it, and then it was just a case of plain sailing to the finish line. Right, Corky, let's see what the analysis tell us about the race. And do they tell us, do they prove just how supreme the Russians were in that race?
Well, exactly that. Minimal distance, minimal amount of manoeuvres, and one of the highest boat speeds across. That generally puts you in a fairly strong position to be at the top of that table, or certainly somewhere close to it. And we saw them coming off that start line. Not a wonderful start, but they ducked behind everyone and headed out on the lifting tack, straight onto that advantageous tack. Good speed, and has pulled them back out onto that right-hand side, away from anybody else. Limited manoeuvres, and it just allowed them to go for straight line speed. And certainly with that bundle just playing into their hands at that windward mark, they scraped round in front of all of that carnage that unfolded behind them, and then it was a matter of just looking back and extending that lead, starting with 30 metres in that first lane, going up to 50, and then finishing with over 115 metres lead at that final finish line.
And so we have three final races to go here in Porto Cervo. Let's see what is at stake. We've been talking about the Italians' dominance of the leaderboards. They've led from day one. They are still in the lead, and they currently have a 6-point advantage. They are racing next. So if they finish in the top 6, then they will be crowned Champions League champions for 2017.
So again, we've seen them with only 2 bad results, so it is all down to them. Legal Sailing, in winning that last race, did everything they possibly can. They are guaranteed second place unless the Italians have a mistake in this final one that could see them jump up a place, but they certainly can't drop any places.
It is possible. They've generally been at the top of their game, the Italians, but they have had a 6th place finish and a last place finish. So anything is possible. Our onboard cameras are with 2 boats for this second race of the final flight. We're on board with Norddeutsche Regatta Verein. NRV with Toby Shadowalt at the helm. And we're also on board with the team from Wannsee. And this is the team we're looking at. The team from Wannsee, from Berlin, who've had mixed fortunes here. Well, in fact, they've had mixed fortunes throughout the Champions League this season. They'll be looking to finish on a high. 4 minutes to the start of this second race of the final flight. Competing in boat number 1 with the blue sail are Yacht Club Bregenz of Austria. Then comes boat number 2 with the red sail. Worth keeping an eye on because it's Lord of the Sail of Russia, currently sitting in 3rd place overall, just a point behind their compatriots, Ost Legal Sailing. So there's a battle going on for the podium places for second and third overall. And they are in the red boat. Boat number 3, that's the boat we're looking at. They are our potential champions by the end of this race. Yacht Club Costa Smeralda with the yellow sail, boat number 3. Boat number 4 has got the light green sail, Norddeutsche Regatta Verein, or NRV, and we've seen them hit form and move up the leaderboard. They're currently sitting in 6th, and I think that they would, given their poor start, are really aiming and would be happy with a top 5 finish. Boat number 5 with the pink sail, Alvanse from Germany. Boat number 6 with the lilac sail, Ekon Segel Club of Sweden. Then comes the Royal Norwegian Yacht Club in boat number 7 and the grey sail. And then the other Italian team. Interesting to see the 2 Italian teams pitched together. We haven't seen it on our live broadcasts yet. Circolo Canottieri Agnene of Rome on boat number 8 with the light blue sail. So we've got 1 minute and 30 to go to the race that could decide our champions in this season of Champions League.
Exactly that. First place, all on the line going into this race. And also third place. Can they claim a solid result, Lord of the Sail, and keep themselves on that podium? So lots to play for, but plenty more battles amongst that overall leaderboard with 1 minute to go to the start of this. You can see the distance of the boats getting away, that white water. The water's got a lot choppier now due to this breeze coming up. We've now got up to 17 and a half knots. So some superb racing. But this is where the boats start to get a little bit overpowered. We saw a few of them trip up, try and make that bear away around that top mark without letting that kicker off. Trying to just do it all on the rudder. They're too powerful, these boats, and it won't happen. So we can see mistakes start to creep in pretty quickly here. With under 30 seconds to go as the boats start to line up on their position. You can see them sat quite a long way back, all about the acceleration coming on. A constant position there from the yellow boat, boat number 3.
And you'd expect them to be playing it relatively safe. Remember, they just have to finish in the top 6 to win this.
So a bold start. There goes the gun. Nice clear racing. 2 boats favouring this left-hand side. One, Lord of the Sail, Russia. Boat number 2, the red boat, and also...
And a protest flag being flown on the Norwegian boat there against the Germans.
But no such trouble. There's the yellow mainsail just peeping round the back of the German boat, Norddeutsche Regatta Verein, sort of the green sail there. So both in a solid position, heading out towards this left-hand side. Breeze in this left-hand phase again. You'll see less and less manoeuvres from these boats while the breeze is up and maximising the speed in a straight line. But with 17 and a half knots, these crews are going to have to work very hard in these boats to keep the power on, and that's exactly what we're seeing from this lead boat.
We're on board with the leaders, the Berliners from Wannsee. Jan Jasper Wagner at the helm, and a penalty turn being carried out by the Royal Norwegian Yacht Club. I thought it was them that were protesting earlier on, but they are the ones that were penalised, and they are now out of the running and certainly out of our shot. The other Italian boat, the Canottieri Agnene of Rome, that light blue sail at the far side of the course, they've chosen to go their own way, and we'll see shortly if that pays off. As NRV, boat number 4, remain on this tack. There we go. They've tacked now and are joining the rest of the fleet, heading towards the middle of the course. Lord of the Sail, with the red sail, still continuing on their way.
So you can see how much harder the crews are having to work on these boats now. That extra power, just even taking a slight manoeuvre and a duck down behind the back of a starboard cross boat.
But look how far the other Italian boat is on that right-hand side of the course. You can hardly see them.
Went for a strategy that you see a lot in catamarans: start on port, duck behind boats, and happy just to get out onto that right-hand side. They weren't worried about any other boat. They just wanted to be out towards that right-hand side. You see that a lot in the faster asymmetric boats, the catamarans, where they're willing to duck behind people just to give them that first position out towards that right. And that's exactly what they've done. And they're in a very strong position. The breeze flicking round towards that right, 19 knots now, and strengthening from that right-hand side is going to hand them a very strong position as they come into this top mark. And I wouldn't be surprised if that Italian team will be leading as we come into that top mark.
Lorenzo Bressani at the helm, multi-world champion, multi-European champion, 16 national titles to his name. He's a man who knows what he's doing, and he has quite a few European champions on board as well, including Jacopo Plazzi Marzotto, who just missed out on a place in the Italian team for Rio 2016 in the 49ers. So immense experience on that light blue boat. But what about the yellow boat, the boat that is leading overall and needs to finish in the top 6? They're currently sitting 4th.
So very tight up this first leg. A great first beat from Lord Lascelles and the Italians heading out towards that left-hand side. But we've got Lord Lascelles up onto closest to the picture here. They are charging in from this left-hand side with this bigger breeze now, forcing the boats having to do a lot more. And this, again, we're going to start to see a little bit more of a bundle up towards this windward mark, with boats pushing to get round that mark, but more so trying to bear them away and get them round that mark. If kickers come off and the weight stays up to windward, that boat will bear away. If they forget and just get into the panic of that race, we'll see boats struggling to get the boat bearing away and going downwind. So let's see how it all unfolds.
So the Circolo Canottieri Agnene, as you predicted, coming into the mark in the lead. Right behind them, boat number 5 from Vanse, but squeezing in there, boat number 2, Lord of the Sail of Russia, coming round that mark and forcing out the Germans on the green boat. Meanwhile, Vanse are away and making progress, as are the leaders. We can see them there, boat number 8.
Fantastic conditions. Now look at the crew, all pumped up, all working for it. Pumping that Jenica, accelerating down that wave. Now look, the boat takes off. Suddenly the white water, it's clear how quickly these boats plane and get up to speed. We're seeing good speeds from these boats as they go downwind up to over 10 knots. So very, very quick, lively boats. As soon as they accelerate with that breeze, they will make quick work of this downwind leg. Not a wonderful jibe from them, but certainly with 65-metre plus lead in front, they'll be feeling pretty comfortable.
And where did our overall leaders round that mark? They rounded it in 5th, and that is where they're currently sitting. In fact, there have been no lead changes, no overtaking at all so far in this race. And the Costa Smeralda Yacht Club currently sitting middle of the fleet.
And here's the drive coming from Norddeutsche Regatta Verein. We saw their speed downwind in that last leg. And again, proving dominant coming downwind. They are the ones with the green sails there. You can see just alongside the leaderboard. Full speed charging down here. But you can see the waves building and those boats leaping out of the water now.
And it's an Italian 1-2 with Costa Smeralda making their way up the fleet on that downwind leg. As we reach the halfway point, Costa Smeralda closing the gap on the leaders.
Again, they've just got to sail a sensible race. They're up into this top 2-3 boats. That's all they need to confirm this. They need to just sail sensibly. Looking back upwind, looking for that breeze. Bad drop there from Toby and his team going round that right mark. You can still see the spinnaker stuck up in the air. That's going to slow them massively. Now it comes down. A poor drop from those guys. And this other boat overheeling, way up with power into it.
The Royal Norwegian Yacht Club getting it all wrong. They're going to have to haul that in. He's got to give his crew time to do that.
poor mistake at that sort of lower part of the regatta, or down to the racecourse, sorry, where they came in at a too higher angle, tried to carry the kite, and now look at it trawling out the back like they're fishermen.
Lord of the Sail of Russia coming round that mark now. They dropped their spinnaker very early, but they round that mark penultimate, so a disastrous race for them unless they can edge some positions back, but that's looking unlikely as we sail up to the front of the fleet and watch the leaders sailing away. It's an Italian 1-2 on this second race of the final flight of the Champions League. As things stand, we have our Champions League champion in second place.
It's great seeing this breeze come up, catching these sailors off guard a bit. How powerful these boats are when they're all lit up with that spinnaker. And just we've seen the people struggling, not dropping them in time. The pressure now mounting, things happening a lot faster, and mistakes starting to creep in.
But a clear lead for the Italian boat on their compatriots. Good 50 metres as they approach that final mark. But it's an interesting battle for third between the two German teams, NRV and the team from Wannsee. Pretty much neck and neck as things stand.
So again, just the breeze being stabilised across the course, 17 knots, fairly stable, with them making their track up to the top end of leg 3. Nice comfortable lead. They just need to now just sail sensibly, not make any of those mistakes that we've seen some of the teams doing with the kites, getting caught out, not bearing the boat away early enough, not easing that spinnaker and causing that boat to trip over. But those are your lead 3 boats as they approach this top third of the course, and currently sitting in second position. Yacht Club Costa Smeralda looking very comfortable in second place, fighting out for second and third. They won't be worried about the race win and the gap. Of course, they'll be looking to try and close it, but it's all about them keeping in this top 6 to secure the championship.
Circolo Carroccieri Agnini got themselves into a nice position to round this mark. And a consistent gap between themselves and their compatriots in second place. Nothing has changed on this leg as far as the two leading boats are concerned. Meanwhile, NRV are pulling away from their compatriots in third place. So they're around and they're heading home, the leading boat. But our overall leader and soon-to-be champion, barring any disaster, is just rounding the mark now. They'll be wanting to keep this safe and clean, and they'll want to head home without too much fuss at all.
Convenient colours to be in as well, the gold colours. But look at that lead as they've accelerated downwind in this breeze and just extending over half a boat, half a knot quicker than the rest of the teams as they charge downwind. 140-metre gap. Certainly something to be proud of finish. There we go with the speeds. We're seeing up to 14 knots downwind with this boat speed as they come into the jibe. Just magical conditions to finish the final of the Champions League here in Porto Cervo.
And our SAP computers have already given a gold medal to that boat in second place. Because if they stay in that position, when they cross the line in about a minute's time, they will be the Champions League winners for 2017. But right now, our eyes are focused on the Circolo Carroccieri Agnini of Rome, with Lorenzo Bressani taking them home across the line. And they win their final race here in Porto Cervo. And they'll be happy with that they'll be celebrating on board, but they look back to see their compatriots who are currently in second place, the yacht club Costa Smeralda, who have been dominant from day one of this regatta. And we're going to watch the champions now approach that finish line. The yellow boat that is now golden, Flavio Favini, America's Cups, World Championships, and now champions of the Champions League 2017. Flavio Favini at the helm, Federico Michetti, Branko Burcin, and Luca Faravelli have done the business. They have led from start to finish on this regatta, a second place finish in their final race, but it's enough to seal gold and seal the title of Champions League champions for 2017. They started this race knowing they had to finish in the top 6. They came off the start line in 5th, but by leg 2 were in second place, and they knew that they had the regatta in the bag.
Now, as all of that's unfolding, it still is shaking up the leaderboard with Lord of Sail just crossing the line there, back in 6th place. They were sat up in 3rd overall. That sees them slide down the leaderboard to 4th, and will all come down to that final race and how the Swiss team, Société Nautique de Genève, will get on with racing with a 5-point gap between them.
So what a disastrous end to Lord of Sail's campaign here in the final of the Champions League. They finished with their worst result of the regatta, a 6th place finish, and so they've slipped from a podium finish to 4th place. Of course, the team currently sitting in 3rd, Société Nautique de Genève, are still to sail. So the Russians will be sitting on the sidelines, fingers crossed that the Swiss stuff it up. But confirmation of the results of race 2 then of flight 12 with an Italian 1-2. Then came NRV. Once again, another great result from them as they bounced back from a poor start to the regatta. Then come the other German team from Wannsee, Berlin. Then the Austrians from Bregenz. Lord of the Sail confirmed in 6th. Royal Norwegian Yacht Club in 7th. And Eccles Sail Club in 8th place. So a really tremendous campaign from the local club. Obviously, as host club, they were given a wild card, so we didn't have a chance to see them in qualifying, to see their performance. But I remember speaking to them on Friday morning before they headed out at the beginning of this regatta, and they said, well, we looked around the club, and what a club this is here in Costa Smeralda. We looked around the club and we decided we were going to choose the strongest team. Not necessarily the team that have always sailed together, but the strongest sailors out there. And what did they come up with? They came up with a multi-America's Cup helm in Flavio Favini and 3 other really experienced sailors with World Championship and European titles to their names. And there they are, our Champions League champions for 2017. Making their way back to shore with a wave for the camera, and Favini, I think that's him sitting, yes, at the back of the boat, holding the sail, always understated. He's seen it all before, but I bet this victory is as sweet as all of them.
Certainly that. Home waters with all of your mates from the same club, and being able to do that in such a way over 12 races completed. It's a phenomenal achievement from those guys, and well deserved, well sailed. Only 2 slip-ups in those 12 races. A phenomenal, consistent regatta.
Well, as our winners make their way back to shore on that rib, the other teams remaining still have their 2 flights to compete in. There's confirmation of the victory by Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, and OS Legal Sailing in 2nd place. And so Société Nautique de Genève, the last of the leading boats yet to sail. And they are in our next race, race 3 of flight 12, and they will be in the yellow boat, boat number 3. So that's the boat to keep an eye out on. 5 points between them and the 4th place Russians. So they'll be looking for a top 5 finish. But our onboard camera is with the APCC Voile Sportive of France from Nantes. They'll be liking these conditions. They're used to the Atlantic, even windier and rougher than the Mediterranean will ever get. But this is pretty close to the sort of conditions that they will be enjoying. They're on boat number 5 with the pink sail. Other teams are boat 1 with the dark blue sail, the Lithuanians, GVK, currently sitting bottom of the leaderboard. Club Voile Saint-Quentin of France in boat number 2. The Genevans in boat 3. Then come the Danes from Frederikshavn Sail Club on boat number 4 with the green sail. Boat number 6 with the lilac sail, Achensee of Austria. And then the 4Ks from Sweden, Yacht Club KKKK, in boat number 7 with the grey sail, and boat number 8 with the light blue sail, Yacht Club Scheveningen from the Netherlands. We're looking at Frederikshavn Sail Club of Denmark, just going out of shot as they prepare with 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go to the start of their final race of this Champions League regatta.
And again, we've talked about it a lot, is how slick the organisation has been with moving those teams to boats. We're talking about flight 12, but with four races in each flight, and that's a phenomenal amount of change, crew changes. We've had changes in conditions from right down to the lightest possible breeze all the way up to now the strongest breezes we're seeing up into 18 knots and providing some spectacular conditions. The sun's out, we have waves, and we've got wind as well. So we're seeing what these boats really can do. But it is applying the pressure to the teams.
And I'm guessing, Corky, that in these conditions and knowing that we have the winners, apart from the team from Geneva, the others are kind of sailing this for pride and sailing for fun as well. I mean, how often do you get conditions like this on boats like these?
Well, you hit the nail on the head in exactly the sense of saying going out and sailing for fun. Well, that's what we're all here to do, what they're all here to do. They're all sailing because they enjoy it. It's fun, it's their passion, it's what they do. Some take it a little bit more seriously, some it's a profession, but we are all doing it because we enjoy it. But exactly why we're doing this, because we love our jobs so much.
So 1 minute and 45 seconds to the penultimate race of the championship. And the boat we're keeping an eye out for, the boat of the Geneva Yacht Club, is the yellow boat that you can see at the top of the screen there. They're aiming for a top 5 finish in order to finish 3rd. They had a really good start to the regatta with 2 wins and a 2nd place, and then sort of wobbled and were inconsistent over Saturday and had a disastrous last race, which we watched today when they finished 6th. But this is the team from Nantes. Damien Yell and Edouard Gendreau, who helmed in St. Moritz as well. 2 America's Cup campaigns to his name, 3rd in the match racing worlds. So a lot of experience on board, and only 1 change since their qualification rounds in St. Moritz. Baptiste Hulin has come in. But you know, St. Moritz was the first time that the French had sailed together, and their first time in a J70, so they're really pulling it together here in Porto Cervo. "15 seconds to go, and very soon they'll be pulling the trigger, heading off upwind to that first mark. The French with the pink sail looking in a good position, but Achensee steaming in at this pin end, and they're off. And it looked like a clean start, And that's been confirmed, the French leading away, and we can watch the fleet behind them as Club de Voile de Saint-Quentin, the other French boat, tacks away and heads off up the right-hand side of the course. So here we go, 1, 2 and 3 at the moment, with APCC of Nantes just edging it with the pink sail. Frederikshavn Sail Club in the green boat, and closest to us, Achensee of Austria.
You can see the different ways to sail that boat now. The top of those main sails starting to flutter. That means they're just dropping out their extra power. These boats becoming overpowered with 18, 19 knots of breeze as they came away from that start line. So plenty of breeze, and these boats then become a little bit of a handful. They've still got to work very slick as a team, and any mistake, that extra power will come back and bite you. So off that line, we saw the boat number 2, the French boat, Club Voile de Quentin, heading out towards that right-hand side, struggling for a bit of overpower as they came in on that start line, and had a change of tactics to fire them out towards the right-hand side. You can see how hard the teams are working. The helm, using that traveller, using that main sheet, uncleating, dropping that traveller down. You see the boom drop out. That power just disperses out the back of that sail and straight back in again. And constant trimming of the sails as all 8 boats are on port tack, driving out towards the right-hand side.
Still very close between the top 3 boats, but compared to other races we've seen, the fleet relatively well spread out. We often can't even give you positions until they reach the first mark because it's so close, but we definitely have, you know, the top 3 boats here are out there, and there is separation between them. So we can say that the team from Nantes are in second, then come the Danes, the team from Geneva in 4th place currently.
So again, those leaders coming from this left-hand side, but coming back in towards the race course, into the middle of it, into this final third of this upwind leg. This is where a good tactic and a sound strategy will bring you back in towards that middle of the fleet, allowing you to then take those shifts, allowing you to be defensive or attack that boat in front. And that's exactly what we're seeing from these lead 3 boats. Excellent strategies on board. And so we were focused on that yellow boat that's just tucked down in 4th place, Société Nautique de Genève. They needed to stay in the top 5 points to remain on that podium. So again, pressure is on. The fleet is sailing very tight together, and it's all about holding on. As the boats now start to approach this starboard ley line, we look back from this onboard cam, you can see those bright yellow sails of the Swiss team as they come in towards this top end of the race course. It's going to get very tight again, but as long as people have got these ley lines right, we shouldn't see a bundle at this mark. We should see some fairly clean roundings. The one thing that might draw attention is whether they depower that boat enough to get the boat to bear away, whether they ditch that kicker and the crew works good enough around this top mark. So let's see how they get on.
But the French leading into the top mark as things stand. Just edging it. But will the Danes squeeze in and around, and who will get away first from this? Saw the Danes come very close to that mark. Spinnakers are up. Now who's going to have the fastest acceleration? Bow to bow, and off they go. The French in their pink boat, heading downwind with the fastest acceleration.
Great footage on board there. How these boats suddenly come alive and accelerate with this extra bit of breeze. That white water spraying off. The team all move towards the back of the boat to get it up onto the planing section.
Look at the strength they're needing to hold those sheets, to control the sail. And by the way, the Genevans rounded that mark and came out of it in 3rd place.
So all standing up, prepped, ready for the jibe. Here we go. First jibe coming in. Power back into that Jenica. Not a great jibe from the lead boat, the French team here. Now the power comes on. Now they accelerate. The team moves to the back of the bus again. Accelerate away.
But the Danes closing the gap on them. And it looks like the Danes have taken the lead from the French. We've seen this before in previous races where downwind some of the boats were just faster. And what would make that difference?
Well, the big difference was just a poor jibe straight there from the French team. Good jibe from the Danish. The kite set, powered up and accelerated away. And by the time that boat picks up momentum, the opportunity's already gone.
And now in the picture, the yellow boat of the Geneva Yacht Club. The Danes are round, but what's happened to the French? What are they doing?
French were trying to provide a little bit of space there for the Danes, but by doing so, lost control of their spinnaker a little bit and looked like it's pulling out. And again, on the opposite side, there's the Swiss team. You still see that spinnaker high up in the air. We can
between right now. Got a mark.
Handling, time training, maybe will now be rather than a few mistakes you get away with in the light.
Leaders from Denmark qualified in 2nd place, had a really great regatta and sailed with each other. Will be helpful in
to these to be enjoyed. These are your lead boats that are in Swiss teams. The lead boat.
The camera, it looked like Genève were leading. 3rd and 1st, and 15 between 1st and 2nd. So everything to play for. They've got to stay on the button. They've got to stay focused, and they've got to make their manoeuvres count as they come up to this mark.
What's exciting about that, with those distances, that is one wave downwind. If they accelerate and get one wave right with that kite, the pump at the right time, the acceleration down that wave, that distance will disappear. So one wave separates the distances between these boats.
The mark coming into view, the left-hand side of the screen, as the 3 leading boats converge on that white buoy. Who is going to reach there first? It's looking like the Danes, as the Swiss and the French cross. One more manoeuvre. That's completed by the French, as Frederikshavn Sail Club get around that mark. Now, how have Geneva done? Have they managed? Are they going to come out a place higher than they went into this mark? Yes. So, Société Nautique de Genève, they need a top 5 finish to finish on the podium overall, and they're now currently sitting in 2nd. That's why that bronze medal has just appeared in the top left corner. The French around in 3rd place.
Now there we go. Look, a great shot from above. Down that boat suddenly accelerates. The team will move to the back of the boat. Big pump on those sails. You can see the size of that Jenica, and look at this boat blasting downwind. This is the clear example of champagne yachting. With that white water blasting off, the team's charging downwind at the moment.
It even looks fast as a graphic. And it's currently a third and fourth for France because the Club Voile Saint-Quentin rounded that mark in fourth. Then comes the Dutch from Scheveningen in fifth. Then come the Swedes from KKKK Yacht Club. Then Akensee of Austria in seventh. And bringing up the rear still the Lithuanian team GVK. But right now we've flown ahead to the leaders as they fly towards the finish line. Frederikshavn Sail Club of Denmark. Chris Homan on the helm there, doing the business with Rasmus Melson, Rasmus Damsgaard and Søren Steen, absolutely enjoying themselves as they nail another victory in this Champions League final here in Porto Cervo. They cross the line in first place and they celebrate once they've got the spinnaker under control. Down it comes. And they don't have long to enjoy the victory because a rib will be alongside. They'll have to come off very soon indeed. So, second place goes to the Société Nautique de Genève, and that is a result that means they will finish in third place overall as bronze medalists in the 2017 Champions League. Congratulations to the Swiss. Guillaume Giraud, Matthew Fischer, Nicola Kaufmann and Mark Stern. They came through qualification in St. Moritz in 8th place and have done a lot better in the final of the Champions League, finishing in 3rd. Club Voile Saint-Quentin have crossed the line in 3rd place, and their French counterparts from Nantes ended up in 4th. So there was an overtake manoeuvre there that we weren't able to see because we were focused on the leaders, but the French club swapping places. Then came in Scheveningen of Holland, and then the Swedish club in 6th. You can see them cross the line as Akensee of Austria finish in 6th place. We'll confirm those results, but we certainly know the top two. Frederikshavn Sail Club, well done to them, a victory under their belts in their final race. But the biggest congratulations go to the men from Geneva who have secured a 3rd place finish in this year's Champions League thanks to a 2nd place in their final race of the weekend. Three victories overall during the regatta for the Genevans. 2 second places, 3 second places, and a couple of thirds as well. Some erratic results around about the middle of the regatta, but they managed to pull the rabbit out of the hat in the end. And partly thanks also to a terrible final race by Lord of the Sail of Russia that saw them drop down and into 4th place. So we have one more race to go, the final race of the final flight of the 2017 Champions League, and we'll be back in a few minutes with that. Welcome back to our live coverage of the 2017 Champions League final from the Costa Smeralda off the northeast coast of Sardinia, in the heart of the Mediterranean. I'm Alec Wilkinson, sitting beside me, Corky Rhodes. We've enjoyed watching our champions crowned in the previous couple of races. And this is our final race of Flight 12. Not an awful lot at stake here. I think it's 7th and 8th and 9th place will be decided. But look, the conditions are champagne conditions, as we like to term it in sailing terms. Wonderful breeze, wonderful sea state, and we're 35 seconds from the start. We've got St. Petersburg Yacht Club in the blue boat, boat number 1. Boat number 2, the Royal Danish Yacht Club, the only all-female team. Nielanska Yacht Club, boat number 3 with the yellow sail. And Corky, I'll run through the others once they've gone across that start line.
So with under 20 seconds to go, you can see them lining back a bit further because we've got gusts and breeze up to 23 knots. So it's gradually built, and these teams now really experiencing what the J70s are all about. A long way back, there's no danger of this being anyone over the line. The flag going to come down. There it is. We are racing. So people being quite reserved, sitting back on that start line, not pulling the trigger too hard, but with these boats being overpowered, you can really start to see these boats skid sideways.
And Société de Regate d'Antibes of the south of France getting across the line first in their lilac boat. Boat number 7 was cross second, Cape Crow Yacht Club of Sweden, and so they're away with Lindauer Sail Club of Germany on boat number 4, also up there in the hunt for the lead as they chase Hellerup Sail Club of Denmark with boat number 5 that has just tacked away and is now heading up the opposite side of the course.
So the breeze shifting round towards that right-hand side, so a good reason to why they've tacked out and gone towards that side of the course. Favoritism over towards that 20 knots still, so we've got a consistent 20 knots with gusts of more. And this is going to catch people out again. We will see it at that windward mark. Really difficult trying to get that boat borne away. We can already see them de-powering the rig, using a lot more back stay, which is the line from the top of the mast down to the back of the boat, and you can see what's called the flicker, the little bit of black fibre, sort of a batten out the back, being pulled down to try and keep that away from the mainsail, pulling that on hard to try and reduce the actual power in that mainsail by adding a little bit more bend to the mast. So there, but a clear start, and that all came down to just being near the line on that gun. Everyone was at least 3 seconds late on that start, if not slightly more. But certainly to see the fleet all hovering quite a distance back. It is the French team up on this left-hand side as we look at it in a commanding position.
But we've seen the leads change many times on this first leg throughout the weekend. So we keep an eye on things as they make their way up to the top mark. The French in the lead, but that lead not extending particularly. All 3 boats sticking to their positions and their line. The Germans in second, and the Swedes fighting it out for third with the Royal Danish Yacht Club right now. The boat you can see with the dark blue sail at the far side of the course in 6th place at the moment, the St. Petersburg Yacht Club, helmed by Anna Bazalkina, Olympic 470 sailor, very experienced indeed. Her crew, though, are youngsters from the Club Sailing Academy, and they are having a baptism of fire in these conditions.
We can see a dominant performance so far from the French. Looks like they're in a totally different race compared with these guys that come off. They're dealing with this breeze with 20 knots of breeze as they approach this top end of the race course. The left-hand side, the favourable side, and seeing them just slowly edge out further and further away from that. Boat speeds up 6 knots. Going upwind, considering the breeze is up, these boats get bounced around a lot, and as soon as there's not enough weight on that rail or you're carrying too much power in that mainsail, the boat slides sideways as well. So it's as much keeping the boat on track as it is driving forward.
So the French clearly in command right now. Hippolyte Machetti at the helm, aiming to secure their 2nd successive win, their 3rd victory of the regatta. But the women on the Royal Danish Yacht Club hot on their heels, as are Lindauer Sail Club of Germany.
Good manoeuvre from the Danish Yacht Club, sailing higher above that ley line, but giving them the opportunity to bear down and make an easier turn and transition round that windward mark. But you'll see as they come into this, the mainsail's gone, the kicker's gone. It's a matter of keeping that breeze out. So big heel from the boat there, but then a good ease on that main sheet enables that boat to bear away. If you don't get that right, it will spin back up towards the wind. Not a great hoist. Kite's gone down into the water, but out it pops. Now to accelerate away. So let's see how these guys manage to get round this mark. Very tight to the mark. Not enough space. They've got to peel out. You can see how hard it is to get round.
The Germans have got it all wrong. They were squeezed out by Cape Crow Yacht Club of Sweden, who have now taken second place. And the Germans have now got a huge fight to get back into this race.
A big error coming on their part, and exactly what I was saying about the Royal Danish one. And there's the penalty being applied to Cape Crow Yacht Club, and so it's handed it to the Royal Danish Yacht Club, who we are on board now. Still not settled in. Now they need to get their weight further back. The helms still stepping around, trying to find position. Now they're locked in. Now they're into this back bit. It's a matter of getting this boat up to speed. But look at the distance that the French have pulled away from everybody. Over 130 metres now because of all of this. But a clever tactic early on by getting up above that ley line and giving them the opportunity for an easier rounding.
How many times today have we seen trouble at that top mark? As the winds have grown through the afternoon, so too has the carnage at that mark. And it's almost as if they haven't been watching.
God, they should tune into our commentary. I'm sure they could pick up a few tips. But doing fantastic out on the water. We certainly don't have the fatigue and tiredness of all the racing these girls and guys have gone through. So the kite coming down early on the French boat at the front of the fleet there for some reason. So they've misjudged that ley line.
Although we've seen that tactic with a few of these boats as the winds got stronger, and we saw other boats messing up their spinnaker drop. We've seen others drop them early to try and avoid that panic at the mark. So the French are round, but what's happening between the Danes and the Russians?
Well, it looks like exactly that. They're all struggling with the kites. They're misjudging their ley lines. They've taken that jibe in and again sailed a greater distance, weren't able to hold that power, and because of that have thrown huge amounts away. So with the French making that mistake as well, that was their opportunity for the Royal Danish Yacht Club to really close the gap. But again, the pressure building on all of them and mistakes creeping in on this final race.
So we have first place on the far side of the course, the Société de Regatte d'Antibes, closest to us. Second placed, Royal Danish Yacht Club. And then trying to get in there between them are St. Petersburg Yacht Club, number one on the far side of the course. Hot on their heels, the Swedes in fourth.
So there, as it splits out, it could have all been a very different picture if there had been some better drops and some handling of the kite, but still very much a race is on. What was a 130-metre lead we saw on that downwind leg from the French, now squeezed down to 40 metres, so everything is still possible within this race.
So we haven't seen Lindau Sail Club since they had that trouble with the Swedes at the top mark. I can tell you they are in sixth place at the moment, trying to make their way up the fleet. In fact, they've just taken, you can see the bottom of the screen, the green boat is battling it out for fifth and sixth with Nielandska Yacht Club of Finland.
Well, with this breeze shifting round, it is favouring the Royal Danish Yacht Club as they come back across towards the port, and that is it. Look at that distance. It's slowly creeping down as the Danish come back across towards that right. So what was 40 metres is down now to 25, 20 metres gap. So closing all the time on that French team, starting to really feel the heat as people breathe down the neck with St. Petersburg Yacht Club coming in for across towards the Royal Danish Yacht Club. I don't think there'll be any trouble straight away here. They should cross easily.
But we're heading towards a nail-biting final leg. One more leg to go. And that final leg is downwind. It always, because it's faster, it always feels shorter. And what happens at this mark will likely define the winner of this race. Currently, it's looking good for the men of Antibes. But the Royal Danish Yacht Club women will be closing that gap. And Cape Crow Yacht Club just in shot there on the right-hand side. They could also come along and spoil the party. There's a big separation between the top and bottom half of the fleet. I think the Finns are now out of it, but the top four still all very much in the hunt.
And that's it, on to this final ley line. Again, clever tactics from the Royal Danish Yacht Club. Just taking that little bit higher above that ley line means they've sailed a slightly greater distance, but it enables a smoother rounding at that top part of the mark. Certainly being some of the lighter crews, it gives them an opportunity to ditch that main off a little bit earlier. St. Petersburg Yacht Club now ducking behind them, but giving themselves a little bit more freedom to be able to get a better rounding, which is what it's all about.
So here we go. Let's watch them go around this mark. They need to keep it simple and clean. Up goes the spinnaker. Round come the Danes. Bit of a slower deployment on the Danish boat.
Certainly taking their
to the
time.
French.
Just getting settled in, and again the French here to the back of the bus, accelerating away now. Now that lead jumping forward again, and that's just because they're quicker at setting back into the position they need to do.
So here's the thing. So the Danes, because of the weight handicap, they've got 5 women on board. Everyone else has 4. Is that actually a help or a hindrance, having that extra person?
It can be a hindrance because there's more arms and legs going everywhere. There's more logistics of where people are moving, the choreography of people moving around. When 4 people, it's a lot easier, but you've got to do a lot more for each role specific. Here comes the jibe. So the kite comes across early. So that's a good jibe. They got the kite round earlier before they even went into the jibe, settled straight back in, and now they're fully charging again. They could get their weight further back to accelerate that boat, but certainly doing enough to take the race win.
So 20 metres between the French and the Danes going up to that top mark, and now look at that. It's over 70 metres, and they are heading towards the finish line for victory for their club in Antibes. And the battle's still on, I guess, for 2nd, 3rd and 4th place. Just having a look on the analytics. 4th place is Cape Crow Yacht Club. And what we're looking at is the finish line. And very soon we will see the red spinnaker of the Royal Danish Yacht Club cross the line in 2nd place. The French have sealed it, and then comes the St. Petersburg Yacht Club in 3rd place.
And fantastic
High
results.
fives on the women's boat. One of their better results of the regatta. But they've always been there or thereabouts. Then come the Swedes of Cape Crow Yacht Club in 4th place. The youngest member, or the oldest member on that team, is the Helm. He's 25. Lindau Sail Club have sort of recovered to finish 5th after that disastrous top mark rounding. And then it's the Finns from Nyalandska Yacht Club.
So really interesting to see how those results worked out. And that race win certainly secured their 8th place for the French team there from Antibes. And also the Royal Danish Yacht Club doing enough with a great 2nd place to keep them in the top 10. So that is why they're pretty happy. A great result, great conditions, a great team, and they'll be pleased to have squeezed in and taken that top 10, or that last place in the top 10.
We'll be looking at the final definitive overall leaderboard in just a moment. Some of those results still need to be confirmed as we wait for Seagull Club Matse, the final boat to cross the line. Who would have thought we'd be seeing them cross the line last? A few weeks ago, when in St. Moritz they finished top of the leaderboard and winners of the qualification act in St. Moritz. They were first or second in all but one of their 8 flights. They were supreme, but Stefan Scharnagel and his sister Anna and the rest of the crew have struggled here today. All right, so that concludes our live racing and all racing here off the coast of Porto Cervo at the Yacht Club Porto Cervo. Let's confirm now the overall leaderboard. So our winners for 2017, the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda. Second place, Ostlegal Sailing of Russia, and finally sealing it in their last race of the regatta, the Société Nautique de Genève, sealing that 3rd place and bronze medal in this year's Champions League, managing to create a 3-point separation from 4th place, Lord of the Sail of Russia. Let's just run down the rest of the leaderboard here in Porto Cervo. 32 teams, of course, and Club Royal Saint-Quentin, another one of the French teams, in 11th. The 3rd and final French team finishing in 15th, the club from Nantes. Royal Norwegian Yacht Club, 21st. And the club that we've just seen in action, Lianska Yacht Club of Finland, finishing 24th. And there we go, the final 2 of the 32. Port Edgar Yacht Club from Edinburgh in Scotland, finishing 10 points ahead of last placed GVK from Lithuania. So it's been a tremendous regatta. Well, not just here in Porto Cervo, but we've enjoyed some really varied conditions and varied sailing, both in St. Petersburg, on the river mouth there, right in the city centre, and on the lake in St. Moritz, where it actually snowed. We were expecting sunshine and warm winds to come up from Italy. Instead, everything was reversed. We got the cold north winds and the snow in St. Moritz, and some really exciting but frustrating racing there as well. But here in Porto Cervo, the sun has shone and the wind has blown, and it has been a tremendous finale to the Champions League season. You can follow everything on sailingchampionsleague.com. You can follow us on Facebook, and you can go to the SAP.com analytics site. Corky, tell us more about that, and from that you can deduce all the data and analytics that's come off the water during the last weekend.
Yeah, it's been absolutely superb racing, and to finish with those kind of wins, and no matter where those sailors will have finished overall, they will have been pleased to have had those conditions and revelled in that with these J70s. So it's been a superb finale and well deserved from those podium teams.
Well, they came from all round the world, 32 teams from 14 countries, but in the end, the winners were the host club of our final, the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, and congratulations to Flavio Favini, Federico Michetti, Branko Bruchin and Luca Faravelli, our winners of the 2017 Champions League. Hope you've enjoyed it, and hope you'll join us again next year for another round of the Sailing Champions League. From me, Alec Wilkinson, and Corky Rhodes, it's goodbye.